Mr. Chairman, my first issue has to do with what happened on the 7th January when we met in this chamber to elect Speaker for Parliament. It's been alleged that you ordered armed military men to invade the chamber. What do you say to that?
Mr. Chairman, I want to thank you very much and thank the questioner for the opportunity. Mr. Chairman, I think that this is a night all of us will remember for a very long time. Very dramatic night, well over 10 hours of real parliamentary hustle and bustle, which is very normal in parliamentary duties. Anyway, if you are a member of parliament, you have realized that it's very normal in parliamentary duties, just that some issues went to the extreme. But for parliament MPs, who would understand that it's a very normal parliamentary duty. The Minister-Designate for National Security was in this very chair yesterday, and he spoke the truth on oath, and that's exactly what happened that night. I don't want to bore this committee by repeating what he said, but just to add, Mr. Chairman, that no civilian, and in this I'm speaking to you and the people of Ghana, no civilian, and let me repeat, no civilian has the capacity to be able to move and order the members of the armed forces. It's not possible. They will not do it, and they have never done it before. Mr. Chairman, so the names that were being bandied about, including my name, did not at that time have the capacity to move the armed forces. If you remember, I was a civilian, not a civilian, I was not a minister at that time. None of the people were ministers at that time. We didn't have the capacity. Even if you were a minister, you will still give whatever you want to say to the commanders. And if the orders are lawful orders, they will obey them. And I want to say that that is not what happened at all. None of us had the capacity. The names that's why I'm happy to use the word allegation. The names that you allege didn't have the capacity at that time to move the armed forces or members of the armed forces of the Republic of Ghana or the police service. And you remember that it was both the police service and the armed forces. Some people failed to maybe appreciate that it was a combination of both the police and the armed forces. We didn't have that capacity at all. And I just wanted to answer to you.
Chairman, with your indulgence, did you give any lawful orders to the military?
No, not
Parliament?
No, not at all, not at all.
At that material time, did you have capacity even to act as minister while serving as the president's representative at that ministry?
By the constitution, I was not the president's representative, and I didn't have the capacity to act because the president, my tenure of office had ended at 12 midnight. And once it crossed 1 minute into the 7th, the president needed to be sworn in for me to be asked to act in his capacity. And
I yield to Honorable Ahibat when you state that you give orders if they are lawful, then they may decide to act. Explain that to us in military.
No, what I said is that when you take a policy, Mr. Chairman, you have been a minister before, when you make a policy decision, for example, when we asked that, look, government took the decision to engage the members of the armed forces and the police on Operation Vanguard. This is what I'm saying, that you make a policy decision and you inform who the operators are, in this case the armed forces and the police, and they will take the action to do it on the field. That's all that I meant, and that's what I said. It is. I've never seen it, and I doubt whether any minister will have that capacity, and you can't have that capacity to go on the field and order the members of the armed forces. No, not at all. Our armed forces are very, very professional. Some of the most professional men and women that you can find in this world. I have had the privilege of working with them for 4 years, and I can tell you that the members of the armed forces will not do anything that the people of Ghana do not want them to do. I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Honourable Minister, you know, the longer you talk, the more time we spend here. So kindly make your answers as crispy as possible. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman,
according to what the Minister-Designate for National Security said yesterday, it was a commander of the military who ordered the invasion. And for that matter, an investigation has been instituted to unravel what actually happened on the 7th January. If you are given the note, will you make sure, because I'm sure you believe that what happened was unacceptable. So if you are given the note, will you work to ensure that whoever ordered the military invasion in Parliament will be brought to book?
Mr. Chairman, first of all, in the armed forces, they have a saying that don't throw the baby with the bathwater. And because of that, the members of the armed forces would always do investigation in whatever thing that they need to do. Yes, it is true, as the Minister for National Security stated, that investigation is going on. So I would prefer that we do not judge what will happen. We should wait for the investigation to be concluded. And I can tell you that the armed forces would always punish anybody found guilty of doing things that they've not been ordered to do. That I can assure you on. And the government will do same if people are found guilty.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, we all know that Ghana is a unitary state, and therefore we do things to benefit all Ghanaians. Recruitment into the armed forces. There is a perception out there that depending on who is in charge, a particular group of people get recruited into the armed forces. And I just want to find out from the Honorable Minister, what practical steps, when given the note, will you take to ensure that recruitment into the armed forces benefits all Ghanaians? So that because before, anytime there's going to be a recruitment, people are asked to go to either Western region, Volta region, Eastern region, Ashanti region, Greater Accra for the body selection and so on and so forth. These days, it doesn't happen. What will you do to ensure that recruitment into the armed forces reflects our geographical location and all tracts in the country will benefit, so that a particular group of people don't take advantage of, getting opportunity into the armed forces at the expense of others?
Mr. Chairman, I want to assure the honorable members and for the country that it is not possible to influence recruitment or enlistment into the armed forces. There are stages and steps and qualifications that members of the public will need to go through, prospective recruits or cadets will have to go through before they are qualified. And especially for cadets, you need to go to close to 6 different stages. None of them you can influence, including writing an exam at the University of Ghana. And for recruitment, it's the same thing. They have selectors who go around the regions to select people. You don't know the political persuasion of any of the selectors, so you can't influence them. So that is not. And I'm happy you use the word that it is a perception. And it is a perception which has been there for a very long time. But it is not a true story, and I can assure you that it is not possible at all. And for the armed forces, the recruitment, as they have always said, must be representative across the entire country, and that's what they stick to, and nothing more, nothing less.
But, Honorable Minister, it is known that some people go around claiming to be agents, holders of protocol, and in that name, they dupe unsuspecting job seekers. Is the military aware of such acts? Do they have any plans to to fish out these fraudsters.
Mr. Chairman, if you don't see the advert in the Ghanaian Times, the Daily Graphic, or the official page of the Ghana Armed Forces on the internet, please, they are fraudsters. Don't do it. Ghana Armed Forces do not ask you to pay money to get recruited. Anybody who is asking you to pay money to get recruited, that person is defrauding you. And I want the public to know that people do that. We have arrested several people, and we'll keep arresting people. And I can say that most people who are positions of influence, people go on Facebook and do that. They are all fraudsters. Please let the people of Ghana know, as members of Parliament, your constituents know, that the Ghana Armed Forces should not take any money from you, except when you are buying the scratch card. Scratch card that you may pay 50 cedis to buy the scratch card. Otherwise, you pay no money. Anybody asking you for money, they are defrauding you. Secondly, there's no protocol in the armed forces. So anybody who says that there's a protocol recruitment, straight away you should know the person is trying to defraud you. There's nothing like that in the armed forces. I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Minister-Designate, follow up to Chairman's question. Your answer is we have arrested several fraudsters. What has happened to those arrested fraudsters?
No, because of the way the armed forces is structured, when an arrest is made, you hand them over to the police and they get prosecuted. Several of them have gotten prosecuted, and others are facing the law courts, and some are in jail. That I, for example, have arrested people using my name, and they are currently serving time in prison. So these things are going on, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, my next question has to do with establishment of military base. I know that we have had traditional military base. In view of the fact that we have added on 6 additional regions in the country, when you are giving them, will you consider opening additional military base, particularly in the new regions, so that they can also attend to, or they can support provision of security in those new regions?
Mr. Chairman, as much as possible, the military wants to put a regiment in each region. The last we had, when we were 10 regions, we had 7, and Kamina, or the northern one, was taking care of the 3 regions up north. But today, the plan is to ensure that we have military presence in each region. In fact, for temporary basis, or for the start, we have put military presence in all the 16 regions of the Republic of Ghana. We intend to ensure that we make it permanent, so that there will be military presence to support the civil police in keeping law and order across the country, and also to make the citizens there safe, and to ensure that our territorial integrity is defended and defended well. Mr. Chairman, we also intend for the fight against terrorism to ensure that we have forward operating bases across the borders. And so what you call a military base, yes, a small military base across the border to ensure that Ghana is safe. The plan has gone very far, the procurement has gone very far with that, and very soon the President will cut the sword to ensure that we have a minimum 15 forward operating bases across the entire north, so that you and myself are safe when it comes to the issue of terrorist attacks. But because it is important to realize that countries around, I'm sure the National Security Minister, you heard him say, that countries around us are having serious difficulties when it comes to terrorist attacks. And so as a country, we have to prepare ahead of time to ensure that our country remains safe. Ghana is an oasis of peace. And so many people and investors will come to Ghana, but they will do that when they know you and myself can protect them. And that's what the government is investing to ensure, that the people are safe. So yes, we are ensuring that we put military bases across the 16 regions. Not just that, we're also ensuring that the northern part of Ghana is safe, as well as the Gulf of Guinea along the coastal belt, to ensure that we have an envelope of security around the country. I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, we know that in all the elections that we have had, the military, there was a military deployment to support the police and other security agents to maintain law and order. But it seems to me that in 2020, there were massive military deployments, and some of them ended up even taking the role of EC to the extent that they would determine which ballots should be counted, when results should be declared, and so on and so forth. And it has even been said that some military men shot at some civilians. Honorable Minister, when you're giving the nod, what are you going to do to ensure that all those military men who were deployed to support the elections, who went overboard, will be dealt with?
Mr. Chairman.
So I have to end up rolling credits. It makes what we do here class speakers. Jupati. All right, welcome back, and that's us Abdul Haim moving together with Barbara Kuma there at the Supreme Court. We're going for a quick break. When we return, we'll engage our resource person and also wrap up from here. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
So we try was suicide. Yeah, let bygone be bygone. I can't see what's going on with you. Go straight to stardom. I'm gonna take you to next level. Baby, oh yeah. Energy next level.
Tell you something, that the security of elections, D-Day activities, is not in the hands of politicians. I think 1998 that we took that decision as a people to take away the power of the GCs at the district level, the regional ministers at the regional level, and the ministers at the national level, and hand it over to the security actors. So for election day activity, for example, ministers are not the people in charge of election day activity at the polling stations. No, not at all. I, for example, I was busily trying to win my seat. How would I have been able to know exactly or deploy anybody? So it is practically impossible for ministers to have been able to do that. And I'm happy that that decision was taken. And I think we should continue with that, so that the police who are in charge at the national level through the IGP And the regional commander who is in charge at the regional level and the district commander who is in charge at the district level continue to take these decisions or where to deploy people or where not to deploy people. Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Honorable Sir, you have had enough for the day. Thank you very much. Yes.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. And I want to congratulate the nominee, my friend Dominic Nitiwul. Honorable Minister, there is a concept of the National Guard, which on all continents it exists. In the Americas, if you go to the United States, it's called the U.S. National Guard. India, it's called the Territorial Army. Tunisia, France, Greece, Ireland. And the National Guard serve community and country, and they respond to domestic emergencies and reconstruction missions, everything that has to do with the internal affairs when they need something, let me put it this way, higher than the police, but with less aggression as the regular combat military. They apply them. So you see them anytime there's a domestic issue, the National Guard is the one that is called in, not the combat-ready, trained military people. So it makes the implementation more civilian-friendly than those who are just trained to defend the territory and lay down their lives for the state. Their mentality is a little bit different. When you get a nod, because I don't know that it exists in Ghana, is this something that you can think about and, if possible, do get the military to have a National Guard? Because what we have in the country, you see that there's military patrols to curb armed robbery. There's all the various missions in the country, Galamsey, Calm Life, whatever it is, that there's some military involvement. But the psyche of a trained soldier.
Honorable, can I?
Your question.
The
psyche of a trained soldier is different from one that is community-oriented. Is it something that you can look into? Is it something that Ghana can do? That's my first question.
Mr. Chairman, I think that the practical experience of the member who is asking the question has come to play because of his background and where he has come from. And I think that it's something that is worth considering. The people of Ghana, rightly so, and across the entire country, will want the military to get involved in civilian life at a very minimal pace. And I think we all agree with that the military should essentially be in the barracks, and the military should come in, and especially come in only when it is very, very critical. But it is also true that we will need the services of our armed forces to some extent in dealing with all the issues to aid civil police. Currently, we have about 23 joint operations, and this president created just 2. All the others existed before that the military have with the civil police. And I think that your concept of National Guard is something that, as a country, we should look at. We should look at carefully to see whether is it not possible to have a National Guard that's more like if you go to the French country, they have the military and they have the gendarmerie, so that they are like the military police who deal directly with the people on a daily basis. So you see them on the street, they are not real combat, as you have said, but we don't have that system. So for me, it's a conversation that we can carry forward, and I will consider it if this House graciously gives me the nod to look at, and I'll deal with you to look at how we can look at it and put that forward for us as a state to consider, including members of this committee through the Committee of Defense and Interior.
Thank you. It's a great answer. Up until I came to the Burma camp for a ministerial salute, I didn't know the achievements of the NPP government. I was surprised. The things I saw that have been achieved in the last 4 years. Can you tell the public what you have been able to achieve in the last 4 years as a Minister of Defense?
Did you say the NPP government or the minister? No, if it's NPP government, I will disallow it because we don't want.
I want, as a minister,
As a minister, very.
as a minister, what he has been able to achieve in the last 4 years.
Mr. Chairman, this government over the last 4 years has really achieved a lot for the military of Ghana and ultimately for the people of Ghana. And I think that one of the areas we tackled was a concern of the minority leader who always talked about housing for the military. It's one of the biggest problems that we have had. If you remember, this House graciously approved a loan of $100 million for me and for the ministry to carry out a serious housing project. It has enabled us to change completely the military academy and training school. So you go there, it's a first-class institution. And by next year, this time, I would invite Parliament to go there, if you give me the nod. First-class institution that we are putting up there, serious structures. Now, if you go to the Civ Garrison in Tamale, accommodation is being put up for our men and women of the armed forces. Kumasi, they are starting. Sunyani, they are starting. In Taprade, they are doing the same. In Ho, they've started. In Accra, too, the same thing. In fact, Mr. Chairman, I came to meet projects that were abandoned since 2017 under what we call the SNIT housing project. We've actually completed 80% of them. I came to meet projects that my good friend Dr. Kumbo had started, about 38 housing projects. I've actually completed, leaving only about 3 projects out of them. So for infrastructure projects, it's unprecedented. We've never seen some before for a long time to come. For a long time now, we've done a lot of infrastructure projects. The housing, the military roads, what we call barracks roads across the entire garrisons, have been fixed at a rate that I can only describe as very, very impressive. If you go to Nitiwul in Volta region, where the Navy, for the first time, is now having a first-class training institution, and these facilities were put up in a record 1-year period, you marvel that the armed forces, plus myself and the government, will put up these facilities of close to over 10 buildings across to train our Navy and to ensure that they have places to be able to do that. Mr. Chairman, vehicles, as we have also in the media, we keep donating vehicle upon vehicle and re-equipping the armed forces throughout. And one thing that has really touched my heart is what we gave the armed forces when it came to transport, buses for them to be able to have. Before we came to power, a lot of the members of the armed forces were being transported in what we call TCVs, troop-carrying vehicles. The ordinary man knows them as abongo vehicles, even for funerals, even for weddings, even for social gatherings. But the government immediately, within 6 months, managed to procure 50 luxurious buses for them. And today, I think that it has served them very well. If you ask any member of the armed forces, they will tell you that that has been the case. One other thing that the soldier will want is what is in there for me, what is really in there for me as a person. Salary rationalization has never taken place in the armed forces over the last, say, 15 years. The last time there was salary rationalization was, I think, in 2006, 2007. And, Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to report to this House that we have rationalized the salary and allowances for the armed forces to at least come up par with the other security services. And this has really boosted the morale of the members of the armed forces for me. And if I want to count or enumerate the achievements, I believe that I'll take about 3 hours to do that. And I don't want to take 3 hours.
Thank you. We don't have 3 hours for you on your achievements. Yes.
Honourable Minister, last question. Personal satisfaction, I think you touched on a bit in your last submission, or as they call it in the barracks, morale. What is the level of personnel satisfaction currently at our basis? And even if it is high, like you just said, people ask for more. What are you going to do to enhance it? And if it is low, what are you going to do to make sure that morale is high at our basis so that, like I always say, no soldier is trained to die for his country. You train so that your opponent will die for his, so that they are ready in their mindset if such morale is high.
when the soldiers say that we know no defeat, that's the slogan of the armed forces, we know no defeat, and they say that we will defend you, that is the people of Ghana, to the peril of our lives. It surely means that when bullets are flying and all of us are running, you expect the soldier to go and face those bullets. So the best you can only do for them is to give them what they need to be able to do their work and do it properly. So we are providing them first with what they need to be able to feel safe. Today we are trying to mechanize the armed forces. So you see that we keep bringing armored vehicles so that we have mechanized armed forces. You don't want to give soldiers pickups to go to battle with because you're exposing them to bullets. And so we are trying to do that. It's bringing a lot of morale to members of the armed forces. Mr. Chairman, like I already talked about salary rationalization, every human being will want to ensure that at least he can leave something in the bank when the month ends. He can take care of his kids. He should be able to make sure that at least at the end of the day, he can feed his family. And I think that it's one consideration we consider to bring the salary rationalization to ensure that the members of the armed forces at least are par with the rest of the others. But one decision that we took, which I think has helped the members of the armed forces, and any of you who have relatives in the 91 group or 92 group can ask them, when we extended the run-out date is the day you'll be released from the armed forces. It used to be a maximum of 25 years. We extended it by an extra 5 years, and that has really helped the members of the armed forces. And I remember a week ago, a member of the armed forces, the 91 group, came to my office. He wanted to come and see me. I didn't understand what he was looking for. Then he said, "Sir, I just came to thank you." I said, "What is it?" He said, "If not for the decision you took, I would have been home 5 years ago. But today I have finished my house. And I want to really come and let you know, if I didn't do that, because I'll be going home next year, but if I didn't come and do that, then my God will not forgive me." That statement sums up what the morale is when it comes to the members of the armed forces. And I think that we should continue with that. If we believe that people should die for us, then we should give them what they need. We should at least sacrifice for them. And I'm happy that the Minister for National Security said we should try to give them resources, not just the armed forces, all the security services. We should give them resources to be able to do their work. And I hope this House will assist us in that process to ensure that they get the resources to do their work.
Thank you. So that's enough. Yes, Ayaga before you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to congratulate the nominee for getting the nod once again by the President. Of course, you need to jump this hurdle, and that is why you're here this morning. Honorable Minister, the core mandate of your former ministry, you've served there for 4 years, is the protection of our territorial integrity. That is the core mandate, and this is provided for under the Constitution. Now, I'd like to know from you whether you are aware that there have been some border problems between our country and the Republic of Côte d'Ivoire along the Bole border, and pillars have been shifted. A Ghanaian was actually arrested on Ghanaian soil by agents of the Ivorian security. He was put before court and is currently serving a 10-year jail term. In fact, the border pillars have actually been shifted. That, for me, amounts to aggression by a foreign nation. What has been the response of your outfit?
Mr. Chairman, I want to say that Ivory Coast, members of the people of, or the public in Ivory Coast, or the citizens of Ivory Coast and Ghana, are essentially brothers. In fact, our neighbors, it is only an artificial border that divides us. Otherwise, we're essentially brothers. I'm aware of that incident, and I'm aware of the problems of what we call Dollar Town. That's what you are talking about. It's a town around Tinga, Bole area. It's a mining area and has a lot of rich minerals, so a lot of people go there to do this, and we are aware of it. But what we did, which we, of course, my minister should not be the first to respond, is to give it to the Foreign Ministry, and they have been engaging their Ivorian counterpart, not just only on that, but the general security of that particular area to ensure that that is done. There was an allegation that he was arrested on Ghana soil. That's why I use the word allegation. But we are dealing with it through the diplomatic channel. It is not in our interest to start using the military as a first point of call when issues like that are there. But what we have done to secure our citizens is to put an FOB, with the one I mentioned earlier, around Bole area. We're going to put an FOB around Bole area to respond to some of these things. But it's not a sign of aggression. And I think that we should step down the sign of aggression a little bit and let the diplomatic channels go through the process first. And I believe that it has worked before and to continue to work. And at the appropriate time, those kind of things happen. It happens to us. We collaborate a lot under the initiative, what we call the Accra initiative, that was set up by this president. We collaborate a lot. And the National Security Minister said it yesterday. It has been a huge success that we spearheaded it, and all the countries around us are part of it. So if there is a problem, we try to use those channels to resolve the matter first before going for the last resort, which is the military intervention, which I hope will never get there, not under this, my watch or the president's watch, not at all.
Yes, Honorable Minister, you indicated in an earlier response to a question posed by my colleague, Honorable Samson Ahi, that the military is not the lead agency charged with the duty to maintain internal security, and that it is only when the agencies of state charged with that mandate are overwhelmed that the military comes in upon invitation. But, Honorable Minister, in recent times, it appears the contrary has become the norm, to the extent that we have seen pictorial evidence, I have seen, of soldiers deployed to perform land guard duties. And this happened not too long ago in one of their Chim towns. The soldiers then had an open confrontation with some members of the community in question. It was a nasty scene. Then also in the Asante region, specifically Tontokrom, a few weeks ago, a documentary was aired by Multimedia's Erasmus Asaredonko. And in that documentary, you would see the military, soldiers from the the Central Command, engaged in an open confrontation with members of the Galamsey, anti-Galamsey task force. The reason for the confrontation was that the soldiers had actually been deployed in Tontokrom to provide security cover for a Chinese mining firm engaged in Galamsey activities in that area. And last but not the least, you see soldiers clearly providing protection for certain VIPs. I know the military is mandated to provide VIP security for the president and maybe the Minister for Defense, but now we see them openly providing security for Jean Mensah, the chairperson of the EC, and others. The question is, the military has become visible and in a way taking the place of the police when it comes to the maintenance of internal security. What is your response to this?
Mr. Chairman, let me state as a fact that we have reduced the visibility of the military. Rather, Mr. Chairman, when I came, the military had signed a memorandum of understanding with 22 mining companies. It's open knowledge. I've said this before. 22 mining companies. And they had actually deployed across the entire country. And they were guiding these mining companies. I withdrew all of them. So if we talk about military signing MOUs and helping legitimate mining companies, I can say that it was a practice before, but we've stopped it. Since January last year, I issued a statement to the military that no military personnel is expected to be seen in any mining company except two, AGC in Obuasi and Azuma Mines in Upper West. Otherwise, if you see anything like that, it is not lawful, and we'll investigate it. Anybody found guilty, that person will be dealt with. The Totomko incident that you are talking about, the initial report I received from the Chief of Army Staff and the CDS is that the enhanced camp life moved in there when the Chief Executive wrote to RESEC and, of course, to the Army Military High Command that there were a lot of illegal activities going in there. So they sent enhanced camp life, which is a combination of police and the soldiers, to make sure that they look at that particular thing. So I've asked the CDS to make sure that they investigate it to the latter and give me a report. That investigation is ongoing. And I can tell you that the military have punished over the last 4 years, and some people have been removed from their military for engaging in acts that they are not supposed to engage in. And some have had their ranks reduced because of that kind of thing. So I want to assure you that anybody found guilty, that person will be dealt with. So investigation is ongoing. For the issue of the protection of VIPs, I think that point was made very clearly yesterday, that it is not a new practice. And there are members, even in this house, who know that it is not a new practice. That if an assessment is made, a security assessment is made on a particular VIP, and we believe that we should use a military person temporarily, we will do that. Because every country does that. You may not know, but it happens all across the world. You know, some are even in plain clothes, some may be in uniform, but it all depends on the message that is supposed to have been sent. But it is not a norm that the military will be guiding VIPs. You already mentioned statutorily the people that the military should deal with. The president, the vice president, and because there is a minister in charge of the military, you always use the military for him. Otherwise, it's not like that. It's based on security advice, and once that is given, we look at it, the military and the ministry, and we deal with it from there. And I believe that answer was given yesterday. So for the sake of a repetition that I'm just repeating, Honorable Member. And I think that I disagree with you, though that is your view, that the military is too visible. I have actually tried to reduce the military to make sure that they are essential in the barracks. And we have been giving them more training too, so that they can keep training. And you continue to see that that is the norm going forward. That the military should do more training and protect us when they need be. I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Honorable nominee, what interventions have you put in place to protect Ghana's maritime domain in the face of the oil discovery, which is offshore? And you know, we have had challenges with piracy in the Gulf of Guinea. Our posturing as a country in terms of our defense strategies have been very defensive for a long time, but these are new threats and challenges. What interventions would you map out and implement? Should you get the nod to continue as the Minister for Defense?
Mr. Chairman, the Gulf of Guinea has become a big problem for the world, you know, and we in Ghana are not left out of that. We joined the Gulf of Guinea Commission immediately we came. And we have been trying to make sure that we are able to keep our exclusive economic zone safe. And as part of it, the government has awarded a contract to build a military base at Nzelizu Western region for us to be able to reach the exclusive economic zone, particularly the oil fields, in record time. It used to be 4 hours from Takoradi. Today, if that military base is complete, we will reach there in 25 minutes. And I think that is something that the government is doing. So we are re-equipping the Navy from the FOB through their boats to ensure that they can protect all of us. For future plans, we are looking at doing same in the eastern part so that we can have an envelope of security within the naval base, within the exclusive economic zone, which is about 550 kilometers, and then 300 nautical miles, 200 nautical miles inland, which is like 300 kilometers. So we are trying to do everything to ensure that we can protect. The steps have already been taken, a contract awarded, and those things have been done. And as a ranking member, I know you are aware, but you just wanted the public to know. I thank you.
Honorable Minister nominee, Operation Calm Life is a combined effort between the military and the police to provide security. It's essentially an anti-armed robbery mission. But it appears their operations are limited to certain parts of the country. Talking about the upsurge in armed robbery cases in the Upper East region, notably Sandama, my own district capital or municipal capital, we have recorded a number of armed robbery incidents in that area. It appears the police have been overwhelmed. They are doing their best, but I'm wondering whether, if you have the nod, you'd consider extending the operations of the Operation Calm Life to that part of the country to augment the efforts of the police.
Mr. Chairman, let me praise the police service and the armed forces for what they have been doing over the years in doing Operation Calm Life. But as stated yesterday, it is not enough because we don't have the resources to be able to give them everything they need. So they are doing what they have to do, the limited resources. We'll keep giving them the resources to continue to do what they want to do. But I want to give you some good news. One of the 4 operating bases, which is what I call the military base, will be sited around the Vrongo area. And I think that it will help in trying to put permanent military within that particular enclave. But in the short while, I will take it up with my colleague, the Interior Minister, to ensure that we increase the presence of the police and the military within that area to temporarily resolve that matter. But in the long run, we are putting the military within that area to assist the general police when they are needed, because we don't want a situation where they have to come from Boku or Tamale or what. It's very far when they are needed. Once we put an FOB in that area, I believe that it will be done. So if you give me the nod, it's one of the first things that I want to do from this year. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It is gratifying to note, and congratulations to the nominee. It is gratifying to note that steps are being taken to equip the Navy to protect our oil resources. That was the question that I was actually going to ask, because in 2015, as part of my program in Kofi Annan, we did visit the naval base and take a ride to the oil fields, and it took quite a while to get there. So it is gratifying to know that 5 years on, steps are being taken to equip the Navy to protect our oil resources and other challenges that we have along our coast. Now, my real question is, you've been at this same position for the past 4 years that you're being nominated for. You've indicated some of the strides that you've made within that time to improve upon the situation that you met. I doubt if you've been able to resolve all the issues that you met, and some may still be plaguing our defense sector. So what are some of the major challenges you faced in the last 4 years, and how do you intend to resolve them if giving the nod?
Mr. Chairman, undoubtedly, accommodation is one of the biggest challenges that members of the armed forces face. Like I said, we've already started under the barracks regeneration program, and we'll continue to ensure that members of the armed forces have accommodation. My vision, if I can achieve it, is to ensure that all members of the armed forces are in the barracks so that we can make sure that there's discipline and morale within the armed forces. It is very, very important for us that as far as you are a serving soldier, you should be in the barracks and not rented, not in a rented apartment or even your house outside your barracks. So I want to do that as much as possible, and it's one of the things that if this house gives me the nod, I'll continue. We need to also modernize the armed forces. Modernize them in terms of weaponry, modernize them in terms of technology, and leverage technology to be able to fight terrorism. Like stated yesterday, you may not have a full army coming to attack you, but you have cyber security. You are going to have terrorists who may use different things. They may use drones, they may use cyber to attack you. So you have to modernize the armed forces, and some of the things that we'll continue to ensure that we'll do. Training. A soldier who does not undertake training may even forget how to shoot a gun. And in danger might not be able to do much for the nation. And so you need to stimulate battlefield experience for your soldiers, even when there's none. And so the firepower demonstrations that the soldiers go, and I will invite members to continue. If you give me the nod, I will invite members to at least witness one, to see how soldiers are within the battlefield. When you hear the guns shoot over your head, even as a visitor, then you begin to see how they feel. The sounds of guns, then you will get to know what is necessary. So training is another thing that is essentially necessary. But more importantly, we need to give them the resources to be able to do that. Of course, the resources are not unlimited, but we need to find resources for our security services to enable them to protect us. There are too many contemporary security issues that are emerging that otherwise used not to be present. But today they are emerging. Like the Minister for National Security stated yesterday, terrorism maybe 15 years ago may not have been a concern for Ghana, but today is one of the major concerns for our nation. So I think that these are some of the things that I'll concentrate on to ensure that we have an armed forces that is there. The armed forces must ensure that they remain a military, and that is one other thing that I'll focus on. And I think that you understand when I say they must be a military, and I believe you support me to achieve that. I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, during every budget cycle, one of the issues that is almost always reported on in this House is the feeding and fuel arrears owed to contractors, which is a recurrent issue. An army cannot march on an empty stomach. So, Mr. Minister, what's been done to resolve this problem, or can you report that it no longer exists?
Mr. Chairman, I really want to thank the Minister of Finance for the support they have given the ministry in trying to resolve that particular problem. We met a huge amount of debt in terms of fuel, electricity, and water for the armed forces, and of course, ration, food. But we've managed to carry all of it, all the arrears.
Chairman, sorry to interject. How much debt did you inherit for our records so that we know, as a follow-up to the Honorable Osler's question, debt? You say huge debt.
I didn't want to state figures so that it does not become headline news. But if you still want, I will let you know. For example, 43 million at that time.
Honorable Minister, you know, when it comes to the military.
Can I ask my final question?
That was your third question, right?
No, second.
Okay, go ahead.
I'll be very brief. Unfortunately, MPs have been at the receiving end of not just verbal attacks, but violent attacks which have led to the death of some MPs within our stay in this House. The last one being our late brother, the Honorable Member for Infantsiman. Now, would you advocate for basic military training for members of Parliament to be able to protect themselves or defend themselves when attacked?
Mr. Chairman, I think the House took the decision to engage the Ministry of Interior to provide security for members of Parliament. I think that has been done, and I'm happy that that route should be the route that we should take. But for individual purposes, the armed forces is always willing at associatory to assist corpuses to go through some disciplinary things for the purpose of individual corpus things that we can facilitate for you. But the armed forces, at no fee, I just want to say that. Because the armed forces have some traits that Ghanaians need: discipline, timeliness, neatness, and some few things that the Ghanaians really need: consciousness, loyalty to duty, straightforwardness, and truthfulness, and some of the things that you really need as people and as members of parliament. Remember, members of parliament, apart from the president, are some of the people who people kill to actually vote. So you are real leaders in the sense of leadership, and people expect us to go in a certain direction. And I believe that it will not be out of place to at least get the armed forces to partner parliament to get members of parliament go through leadership training. I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have the handing over notes of the Ministry of Defense. Mr. Speaker, I have perused the handing over notes. I believe you are familiar with your own handing over notes. At page 4, you talk about there are 2 volumes. At page 4, you talk about accommodation for the military, and you give some indication of work that is being done. And here you've spoken extensively about accommodation for the military. And then at page 52, you also elaborate on accommodation across the country for not just the military, but the Air Force, Navy, and the special units. The question that I have for you is Burma Camp, the location of Burma Camp. Burma Camp is now in the middle of Accra. Soldiers mingle with the rest of the population. There's no wall blocking the rest of the population from having access to Burma Camp. There's an effort, but it's not the entire area that is fully walled, if I recall it. Now, will you consider relocating the Burma Camp from where it is, and Teshi and all the other different units of the military in Greater Accra? Will you consider relocating them to a place like Segleme Housing Project, where, as we speak, we have 1,024 housing units either completed or near completion, with infrastructure reasonably available. And it is not far from your military training grounds, and not too far from the ocean where, the Navy could also put up infrastructure, and then not far from Bundaswi, and also not far from Michel Camp. Will you consider relocating Burma Camp so that we don't waste this infrastructure and national resource? There may be issues with it, but those issues can be resolved alongside as we utilize the facility. Is this something that you will consider, assuming that the Supreme Court doesn't say that John Mahama has won and you remain there as Minister for Interior, if this House approves you? For Defense, if this House approves you.
Mr. Chairman, I want to thank the member. I think that it's a conversation that is worth taking up. And I believe that members of the armed forces will be very happy to be given that location, that particular facility, if it's completed. I do know that there are some legal issues surrounding that facility. But I think that if that facility is completed and handed over to the armed forces will really take it. Like I said, accommodation is one of their problems, so that they can put some of their combat troops there. Most nations around the world don't have the armed forces in the center of town. Most nations around the world don't. And so we have to start thinking about it as a country. In the long term. So I have some sympathies with what you are saying, that we should start that conversation now. And I think that as a first step, we should look at handing over Galamsey housing project, complete it, handing over, after the legal issues have been addressed, to the armed forces to occupy, and then we'll take it from there. And we can develop into a real balance. And then we can take a decision as a country what happens to Bemakam. I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Tamale Air Force Base. You've gone to take some huge tract of land there. Not you, but the military Air Force has gone to take some huge tract of land there. And now and then, other agencies come and fetch a bit of it by your indulgence as the military or Air Force to do something. I hear the chiefs around there are complaining and asking that at least a portion of it should also be given back to them for housing development, because the towns and communities there are expanding. Will you consider giving back some of the land to the chief of Savilgo? What's the title? Yona. Will you consider returning some of the land at the Air Force Base to Yona, at least, so that he can also give to his subjects for their individual development?
Mr. Chairman, we have decided to do a serious analysis of the lands that were acquired by government and vested in Lands Commission, but were allocated to the Ministry of Defense or the Ghana Armed Forces. And that exercise is ongoing. It was put under a committee, and they are virtually almost coming to an end. I have to first know the extent of the land you are talking about. I don't even know whether that land belongs to the Yona or somebody else. It is the report of that committee that will give us the extent to which the military lands are, especially around Tamale. Because growing up, Kamina was 6 miles from Tamale. Mile 9, which you call Bawa Barracks, was 9 miles from Tamale. And we all thought that the land between Kamina and Mile 9 was military land. But today, the minority leader would would agree with me that most of the lands are now being developed by private individuals. And so we have to first do and assess the place first and know which lands the military today have. If you ask Calendar Park, which was about 600 acres, was essentially military land. It used to be what we call the Second World War. They used to have it, and it was military land. Today, it's all been given out, except for some 7 or 8 acres that is still under contention between the Tamale chief and them. So let us finish that report, and then based on that, we can make a decision, Mr. Chairman. But let's keep the conversation going on this particular thing. It interests me, just like you, to ensure that we come to a conclusion on that particular thing. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
My last question, Mr. Chairman, is a double-barrel gun, if that's permitted by Mr. Chairman. Oh, please. I mean, I can ask a substantive and then find a way of asking a supplementary, but I haven't done that. An update on the Bazua military base in Boku, where I have a personal interest. And lastly, do you agree that Galamsey is happening in Ghana largely because our military have failed us?
Mr. Chairman, we are going to expand the military base in Boku. We've allocated one of the forward operating bases to Boku to expand and put permanent military bases there. In fact, the 11th Mechanized Infantry Brigade will be stationed in there. So it's a serious military base that we want to put there. Whether we host the logistic base of the military for the upper East. And so you can be rest assured that as a member of Parliament, if you give me the nod over the next 4, we'll work together with the others, chiefs and opinion leaders and the MC and all the other people together to ensure that we do something that will benefit all the people together. Because we don't want a situation whereby we will be having the problem that we're currently having. You cite the military base somewhere, and tomorrow the town immediately has grown up to catch the place, and you start having the problems that we're having in other places. So let's keep that conversation going, not just you and me, but as a nation, to ensure that we do the right thing. But I don't agree when you say that the military has failed us in the fight against Galamsey. I think that you have the experience because you were Minister for Lands and Forestry before. You were Environment, and you know the extent to which Galamsey had almost consumed this country shortly before you left office. And the military stepped in to do what they needed to do. Last year, January, I felt that the military had achieved what they were asked to achieve. That's what I asked them to move out. Like you started before yesterday, Galamsey has been with us for a long time, but it is the nature of the current system where we go and use excavators to destroy our water bodies, to destroy the environment that is posing the problem. But for our local people who go and use cutlasses and hoes to just go and collect some small minerals, I don't think that should have been a problem for us. We don't want also to keep your military in the forest. Then you are not helping the military. You are not helping the people of Ghana. You want them to do a surgical operation and come out, And so if there is a need to do a surgical operation for the military in terms of what the president has said, because he said, let's have a conversation on Galamsey. So if there's a need to do a surgical operation, the military will do a surgical operation and come out. But I am not in favor of keeping the military in the forest for a very long time to fight the Galamsey activities. I think that's not the best way to go. And I think that the nation will support me on that call. I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My good friend, the nominee, congrats for being nominated again to serve as the Minister for Defense. The first question I want to ask is whether you have an idea of the female ratio in the military and the efforts you are making to encourage the ladies to be recruited in the military.
Mr. Chairman, the Armed Forces is making every effort to encourage our female counterparts or our females to do, but it's a very competitive field. It's a field that you don't want to do favoritism. You want to make sure that people qualify or merit. So all the women you see today, they qualify or merit. But there's a gender desk that we have set up at the Ghana Armed Forces. But like I said, the females there are not recruited just because they are females. No. They are recruited based on the fact that they are qualified, they are exceptional, and they've done well. Ghana has one of the highest in terms of numbers. I will not give because of the sensitivity of that question, but we have one of the, in fact, we've virtually passed the UN threshold of the ratio when it comes to both peacekeeping and then even the people within the military. But the encouragement is always there to ensure that, and we are conscious of that, to ensure that the females are given the due recognition percentages that they are supposed to get in the recruitment process, so that the numbers are kept at par. They do a lot of work, and they do very, very well when it comes to the work of being a soldier. And I want to encourage them to continue to avail themselves, because it's a service. If you don't avail yourself, it's difficult to get you there. And so far, the females are doing exceptionally well. I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Yesterday, when the nominee for Minister for National Security appeared before us, he said it's a big challenge, indeed a huge problem when it comes to information technology security. And as far as the military is concerned, the Ministry of Defense, can you give us an idea of the kind of investment that you're making in technology to assist in defending the nation? Usually, we talk about recruitment, we talk about troops, etc. What efforts are you making towards the direction of investing in technology, which will assist in our security?
Mr. Chairman, I just said that one of the prime things we want to do is to ensure that we bring a lot of technology into our military field. We are doing a lot already. But like I said before, when you are talking about firepower and the military, you want to give as little as possible because you are talking to the world and you don't want people to know exactly what you have or you don't have. But I can assure you that technology is one of the things we are leveraging and will continue to leverage. But like he stated yesterday, if you don't have resources, you will not be able to do that. But it's one of the 5 pillars under the next 4 years that we are considering. I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, the last one is about military bases. Are there any plans to have more military bases in Ghana?
Mr. Chairman, I thought I answered that question. Yes. Yes, and I've already given out a number of those bases, saying that we're going to build, in the north alone, over 50 military bases. We're going to ensure that all the regions have military bases across. It's just to help ensure that we have military presence in as much as possible. But the budget for the 15 up north is already there and it's ready. And 15 is there and it's ready, and we're going to roll it out. And as we get more resources, we'll roll out all the others in all the other regions to ensure that everybody has a military base to be able to assist civil police to do their work and do it effectively. I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes. Sweeney first, yeah.
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker. Sorry, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity. Mr. Chairman, I do not intend to ask a question on emoluments and how well resourced the armed forces is, but just to refer the Minister to the medium-term expenditure framework for 2020 to 2023, Ministry of Defense. Page 24 of that report states that logistics and financial constraints were the main problems of the ministry in 2019. And so perhaps when the minister gets the opportunity, he may want to, avert his mind to that as he speaks of how well resourced the ministry has become under his watch. It's important to pay attention to that acknowledgement of the major challenges in the medium-term expenditure framework of the Ministry of Defense. But my first question, Mr. Chairman, has to do with the image of the Ghana Armed Forces. It is something that a lot of people are worried about. I have seen a number of research reports that have complained about how they are either misused or abused, either in mining sites, where it is even suggested some mining companies are bribing the Ghana Armed Forces, either directly or by way of corporate social responsibility, where some roads are tarred and all of that. Mr. Chairman, the minister has already spoken about how they are assigned as bodyguards to people. And when the minister spoke about the chain of command, he talked about how he was busy trying to win his seats. I have some pictures here of the minister campaigning with very strong military, just around him. I wonder, if that was also, part of the duties of the Ghana Armed Forces. So, Mr. Chairman, some of these operations that the military have been engaged in, like preventing mining, we know what has happened. You were strongly, criticized when some tipper trucks were bent in Dalong, for example. All of these do not contribute to giving the military, the Ghana Armed Forces, the image that it deserves. As Minister for the last 4 years, have these reports and these concerns come to your notice? If they have, how have you contributed to cleansing the image of the Ghana Armed Forces vis-a-vis the perception that they are used in some of these operations and some of these bodyguard services that they give, lessen the relevance and importance that the army should play in our democracy?
Mr. Chairman, I thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, as I already stated, I hold a strong view that the armed forces should be used only when they are necessary. I've already said that before. And I said that the armed forces were engaged in trying to help because of, at that time, the difficulty of containing illegal miners, in trying to help protect 14 companies under the Ghana Chamber of Mines and 7 other companies that were private companies prior to my coming. And I withdrew all of them. Of course, the beneficiaries were not happy, but I did. I did because I thought that the armed forces should not be exposed so much to the public, and they should allow the police to do that type of thing. And so I still hold that view, and I've, as much as possible, told the commanders to ensure that the armed forces operate within that kind of cycle. So the complaints for the public, like I said, the armed forces are for the public. They largely serve the public, and they will do things in the interest of the public. So when these complaints come, we take it and use it as a form of reforming the orders that are given to the armed forces. And particularly, I sympathize with the owners of the tipper trucks that were burned. I said it here on the floor, that it was not just in Tamale that the armed forces thought that the first thing, when they were giving the tax on Operation Vanguard and the Riverine operation, to put the fear of God in certain people who they thought were recalcitrant. But from the public reaction, including what happened in Parliament here, the armed forces have to redo their orders and get them to slow down. So you didn't see any more burning after that kind of thing. There was burning in, I think, Eastern region and in Tamale. And in the Tamale case in particular, Mr. Chairman, Ghana Water Company had said that they were not going, they couldn't produce water for Tamale Township in about a month's time if the people continued the sand-winning activity that was destroying the water. And the military said that they had gone there 2 or 3 times to talk to the people. But as we know, maybe the owners may not even have known that this is what their drivers are doing. But the owners are those who really lost. So, like I said, I sympathize with the situation. But they were actually doing that, according to my brief, to save the Tamale Township from having serious water shortage. And you know the effect of not having water for a population of about 400,000 people. It would have been devastating. And so sometimes they take these decisions, Mr. Chairman, not because they just want to punish people, in good faith. But when issues come, we investigate at the level of the armed forces, and if there are issues to correct, we do correct. So I want to tell you that your concerns are always taken. Tell me, you may think they are not, but they are really, really taken in fashioning our policy going forward.
So as a follow-up, I'm indulging Chairman to come in. Minister, I appreciate your response to the question by the Honorable Sohine. But it appears to me, for the record, I've heard you use Tamale. What I do know, because I visited the site, it should be Afayele, Dalong, Kumbongo, but tipper drivers or owners who are affected, you are free to say Tamale. And just to take advantage of where Honorable Sohine, was it government policy that in some areas you ban, in some areas you seize those tipper trucks and excavators? What was government policy? So, but for the record, it should be Dalong, Afayele, because I recall with the Honorable Ras Mubarak and probably Honorable Sohine and co, we had to go and empathize with the families that were affected because their livelihood was dependent on it. Will you consider your action as high-handed?
Mr. Chairman, I think I keep using Tamale because they were the beneficiaries of the water treatment center that was done. I'm not talking about the site the Dalong site where they were doing the water treatment center. But I'm just talking about the beneficiaries of the Ghana Water Company water. That's why I keep using Tamale. Not, even though I know that Tamale is not the only township that was benefiting from it, but I just use Tamale because it's the biggest town in that area. So that's why I use that. Mr. Chairman, it was a government policy. The government policy was to protect the water bodies. 100 meters on both sides of the river flank, no activity was supposed to take place. The military took the operations and did what they needed to do. And because of the concerns, we had to really find a way of putting a human face to the activities of Operation Vanguard. So your concerns, as I said, were already taken in that respect. And I have said it before, that I sympathize with the owners. And maybe the owners may not have even known that this is what their drivers were doing. So I really, really sympathize with the owners. But like I said, with the issue of the military, and especially all security agencies, you don't throw the baby with the tap water or the bath water. You need to essentially find a way of ensuring that internal investigations are carried out and whatever needs to be done is done, and then you move forward with it. Thank you.
So given, as a follow-up, given this human rights abuses, will you, in some of these cases, like Dalong, support calls for compensation for the victims? And because of the need to protect the image of the Ghana Armed Forces, will you suggest that their roles are either reduced or limited in some of these operations that have led to this bad image?
Mr. Chairman, I think that all operations are carried out based on threat analysis and security. And if the armed forces need to be there, they will be sent. If they are not supposed to be there, I can trust you that they will not be part of it. Like I said, since the beginning of last year, 2020, we thought that Operation Vanguard could operate with other armed forces, so we withdrew them. So we will do this based on analysis, security threat analysis, and what we need to do. Because some of these mining sites have bandits, foreigners who have guns, and sometimes you use the military to ensure that you keep citizens of your own citizens safe. So we'll keep doing these things to ensure that those things are done. But for when you use the word human rights abuses, I want to say that it sends a very strong signal to the UN, and I want to not to use those. You can use it, but I think that we should be a bit careful. Yes, those excesses that may have happened. I am not too sure that I want us to encourage talking about compensation and other things at this point. I think that we can keep engaging one another. Otherwise, we may start something that we will not be able to carry going forward, because we keep issues are going to continue to come, and we will deploy police or military to do things. Are we going to make sure that all those things are done? So it's case by case, and I think the conversation has started. We can continue with it and get to the bottom of it. And if things are supposed to be done, you and me will talk about it and get the right thing to be done. I can assure you on that. Take it from me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for the assurance. And Honorable Nominee, you appeared before a similar committee in the 7th Parliament, and you gave the following assurance regarding recruitment or enlistments into the Ghana Armed Forces. Regarding challenges associated with enlistment into the Ghana Armed Forces and the apparent existence of ethnic imbalance in the forces, the nominee stated that although he was not fully aware of the causes of such perception of imbalance, he promised to review and restructure the recruitment process to ensure that the inherent challenges regarding regional and ethnic balance are addressed in accordance with the law. He informed the committee that already the military command had introduced an online recruitment process, emphasis mine, online recruitment process, which he believes will help to resolve some of the challenges associated with the process, since it will reduce the human interface in the initial selection process. Now, reports have suggested that since you became minister, over 1,700 people have been recruited into the Ghana Armed Forces under very dubious circumstances. What's your response to that?
Mr. Chairman, like I said before, in 2017, the Armed Forces advertised for people to be recruited. Over 10,000, in fact, close to 20,000 young men and women, recruitment, not enlistment, applied. The selectors went onto the field and selected over 5,000 qualified members They wrote, then they came down this body selection and selected over 4,000 qualified members. As we see today, the armed forces have not been able to absorb all of them because of lack of training space. And so I think that that assertion is not true at all. The armed forces hasn't recruited anybody outside this field. And I don't think that the armed forces can be compelled to do anything that is fishy. The armed forces are operating within the Constitution, and they will always do recruitment based on what the details of the Constitution are. And these officers that you see have high integrity and moral attitude, and they will not do anything that is not supposed to be done. So that allegation is not a true allegation. Like I said, if anybody has any evidence, I'll be willing to do that, to investigate it. I don't get directly involved in recruitment, so that I know. There's a department that does it, and they will not do anything that that is untoward. I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, before my third question, maybe I'll make an appeal to the chairman, if you will indulge me, to request for the list of those who have been recruited since you assumed office, given the 5,000, record that you speak of from which the recruitments have come. If the chairman will indulge me and request for that, I'll be grateful. But I'm not making the request. If the chairman will indulge me and make that request, I'll be grateful.
I'm not hearing you. What request is it?
Mr. Chairman, I was just saying that if you indulge me, I will seek your pardon to request on behalf of the committee and the list of those who have been recruited since 2017, given the explanation that the minister has provided this committee.
Well, I think the Committee on Defense and Interior can request and question, but this committee may not need that for our work now.
Okay. So,
I want to make some correction. I did not say they recruited 5,000. I will not give out the number. It is not advisable to give out the number of individuals requested. I can show it to anybody who wants, but publicly it's not a wise thing to do. But I said that those who were qualified, the pre-qualification, those who applied, and then when they did the body selection, those who were qualified, that's the number. But I didn't give the actual number that was selected. It's year by year, and it's far lower.
I get it. That's why I said it's not a request from you. I'm just making an appeal to the chairman that if we have that database of 5,000, and then from that database we are apprised with how many have been, formally recruited since you took over, I'm sure it will be very useful for the committee.
I'm sure the Committee of Defense.
To my next question, the third one. This is my third question. There was a conflict in 2019-2020 in the Charkoni area involving Chokoses, Anafus, and Kokobes. Maybe before that, I just received a message from one of the officers serving there that the police are giving 900 Ghana cedis per head as they are positioned there, but the army officers are given nothing. Maybe it's something you want to look at. They are given nothing. They are not paid anything. But there have been allegations where your name have come up. Obviously, not your fault. By destiny, you are Kunkumba. And so some allegations have come up in relation to the professional and unprofessional roles you are supposed to have played. What do you have to say to that, especially when it is alleged that there was fire at a depot in Accra and some of the weapons found their way to the area?
Mr. Chairman, it's a very big, how do I say, even the thought of it, even the mere thought of it that members of the armed forces can even remotely allow an individual who is not a member to have access to the armory is something that I cannot even comprehend. So I don't even want to give credence to that. It's not possible at all. Yes, it is true that part of a building in the depot was burned down. I went to look at it with the soldiers, with the CDS and that kind of stuff. It's not, the public don't get access. It wasn't housing guns. It was housing some explosives. We are trying to address that problem. And I can assure members that we'll address that problem. so that we don't have that kind of thing going forward because of where it is situated and the danger it poses to the people. We are actually addressing the problem right now. So that is not it. It's not a true story. And with the police and the armed forces receiving, the armed forces operates a little bit different from the police. The armed forces, they cook. Because it's combat, they actually go ahead to cook for their troops. They don't allow people to go outside and buy food. They actually cook ration there. So the way they go about their things is strange. But I will investigate what you are saying to ensure that if there are things that are not supposed to be done, they are done properly for the police. But I'm happy you already know, proud as you are as a Dogomba, I'm a very proud Konkomba, but we are brothers and we are the same people. A tongue and the mouth and the teeth will always be together. They will fight, but they will always come together. The only role I played in that thing was to lead a high-powered delegation of Chakwoses and Konkombes. I put together all the Chakwoses you could find, both NDC and MPP, Mary Nakubo and Co, all of them, Isaba, all of them. I put all of them together and took Mabungban, Konkombes, opinion leaders, all those who matter in both tribes, and put them together. When the fighting was ongoing, and we went to Chirponi in the midst of the fighting, and we went to Saboba in the midst of the fighting, we went to another Konkomba village in the midst of the fighting and told them that look at us as the opinion leaders. And don't fight among yourselves. We are brothers. Look at us. If we can come together, we are not killing each other. Why should you? And since that day, it was a Friday, I remember. Since that day, no single gunshot has been done. And I want to praise that team. I want to really praise that team for that bravery alone, to be able to go there and that matter was resolved amicably. And I think that the people have lived there for thousands of years. It was a misunderstanding, and I don't believe that it will ever come again. So since then, the team, they keep talking among themselves, and I think that it's a good beginning. That we can work together. And I really want you to help me praise that team that went. It was a combination of the team, and I think that I don't want to give praises to myself. It was a collective effort we all did, and we resolved that conflict. And I want to praise the military and the police who have since been there to also make sure that they keep resolving that matter. And we'll keep trying to do whatever we have to do to resolve some of these things.
Finally, I have seen reports about command structure in the Ghana Armed Forces and some alleged undermining of that structure. Some names have been mentioned. One Major Pong Pepra, with TEF War, with the then CDS, and all of that. All those do not, give the armed forces the control that is required for them to assure us all of our safety. What have you done if those reports have come to your notice about such concerns among the servicemen and women? And whilst at that, will you explain to us why you had such a strong military support during your campaigns?
Mr. Chairman, I'm surprised. I have to check exactly and get the picture. I'm not able to know exactly what it is. But as defense minister, sometimes for occasions, the military accompany me to do some things. Unfortunately, it is a courtesy I get for my position. And I believe you understand some of these things. But for the non-existent tension or undermining, that it's not. No, it's non-existent. That does not exist at all. General Pompepra, who is a current general, is the army commander of the Ghana Armed Forces. He is the army commander. He moves the troops. He's the army commander. He was the CSO under the last CDS. He served under him. And when he moved from the army command to become the CDS, he also moved to become the CSO, that's the chief of staff, and later army commander. And they've worked together amicably. They are brothers, and I can assure you that there was nothing like that. It's non-existent. It has not even come to our notice because it doesn't exist. Maybe some people are thinking that there was something like that for some reason, but it doesn't exist at all. And I can tell you that the armed forces, especially the military command, are some of the most highly trained professional people that you can find anywhere in the world. I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Honorable Patricia Page, is that you? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Honorable Minister, congratulations. Honorable nominee, we haven't given you the nod yet. Congratulations for your re-nomination. Honorable, I quite remember the last term when you appeared before the committee. And even when your name was mentioned, a number of people were a bit skeptical because they considered you as one of the youngest ministers to occupy the seat of Minister for Defense. But when we started with your vetting, you've indicated that if you have to talk about your achievement, we'll spend almost the whole day over here. But I'm particularly interested in how you were able to solve your acute accommodation problem. I think it has been a major challenge, and I would like you to inform the House about this, how you were able to deal with this challenge. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'm happy that the President has reposed still confidence in me. I was trained here by UPO altogether when I became deputy leader, even at a much younger age. And I'm happy that things have continued to be good. God is good and will continue like that. But Mr. Chairman, as I stated, accommodation has been an issue. We've started massive accommodation for the armed forces. We will continue. Some in Bemakam, the Bemakam one started, and we are going to do even more for them and in Tamale. And in the next 4 years, if you give me the nod, it's one of the things that will continue to put the resources in so that our people can sleep well. Before, even high-ranking officers were occupying one single bedroom. We want to change that so that minimum space for a soldier should be at least 2 rooms to about 4 or 5 at the top level. And that's what I've set myself the standard. And that's what we are currently doing to ensure that we'll do. Likely, I have the support of the government, the President, and the Finance Minister to ensure that that is done. So I can assure you that we will try to tackle that particular problem. We're already doing it, but we'll continue to do and do more. So, Mr. Chairman, I want to thank her for giving me that support and privilege of eulogizing me as a young man who at least has done my part in helping build the armed forces of the Republic of Ghana.
Thank you. I think that's about it. Thank you.
Yes. Well, yes, President.
Most grateful, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, let me begin by revisiting the matter of the election-related killings. The honorable nominee was the substantive Minister for Defense and remained so for a whole month after the shootings which led to the loss of lives of Tajuddin Al-Hassan, 39 years in Techima South, Abdallah Ayarik, 18 years, Techima South, Emmanuel Dompre, 36 years, Ododiodio, Samira Zakaria, 14 years, Savlugu constituency, Ibrahim Abbas, 30 years, Ablekuma Central, Rita Otu, 15 years, Ododiodio constituency, and Fuseini Musa, a 17-year-old pupil of the Savlugu Raudatu Atfa Primary School. Can I know from the nominee, the whole month you were in office since these killings, did you visit their families? Some of them were hospitalized before they died eventually, and some remain in hospital, as the National Security Minister confirmed yesterday. Have you visited, you and the Military High Command, have you visited those in hospital and the families of these persons who were killed by trigger-happy soldiers on election night?
Mr. Chairman, I want to thank the member for the question. And like I said, sympathize with the families. It is important I do that. And I've done that anywhere, privately and publicly, anywhere I got the opportunity to do that. I want to really sympathize with the families. But like I stated, Mr. Chairman, the armed forces were called in to assist the civil police. The investigators or the people to do the investigation is the Criminal investigation department or the police service. The police service are doing that. Of course, the IGP is overall boss of the police service. The armed forces so far, no member of the armed forces so far is a subject of investigation in any of this. They have not been accused yet. So if you have any evidence that there is a trigger-happy soldier who has done that, please let us have it. Or let the police, not even me, let the police have it. And it is a normal procedure. They will write to the CDS that release this soldier for us because we want to investigate him. He's a sergeant of this and that and that and that. Unless you help us with that information, it's very, very difficult for us to be able to know. Because the soldiers are not yet the subject of any investigation. They have not been accused. Officially by anybody. The police have not invited them yet.
I'm afraid you're not answering my question. My question is, have you visited?
Oh, no, not yet. I have not, please.
That is my question. The next matter I intend to return to is the infamous night of January 6th in this very chamber. The Honorable Murtala Muhammad, a colleague of ours, the MP for Tamale Central, has gone on record in an interview the following day on Joy FM, a copy of which I have here. He cites you directly. He says, and I quote, Dominic Nitiwul called the military into the chamber. Armed military men. They were armed to the teeth, and that is completely unacceptable. I was there when he was making the call, and I confronted him. I asked him whether he didn't feel embarrassed about what he was doing. He may challenge this, but I wasn't the only person there. I have witnesses. He made the call in the chamber. The Honorable MP further noted, quote, never in our history have we had armed military men deployed into the chamber. It was completely unacceptable. The Minister for Defense made the call when he was standing with him, and I told him it wasn't necessary because it would be a blur on the integrity of this house, unquote. How do you respond to the Honorable Murtala's direct allegation that you invited the military into this chamber?
Mr. Chairman, that is not a true story. I've already answered this question, that I didn't even have the capacity at that time. I was the Minister for Defense. So I didn't have the capacity at that time to move the military. And he knows, my friend, he's my very good friend. He knows that I had not spoken to him for a very long time. In fact, this is where I was sitting over there. I didn't go to any place. I only would go and unite a passport and come back. I never went to any place to go and remove anybody. But like I said, and yes, I was sitting with him and sitting with the independent candidate, and both of them can confirm. But like I said, that the military are some of the most professional people. They may take a decision to do one, they and the police may take a decision to do one or two things, but they would have taken it thinking that they are doing their best to solve the situation. We should not pass the baby with the bathwater.
I follow up on that. Do you know Colonel Joe Punamani? Colonel Joe Punamani?
Yes, I do.
Who is he?
He's a military colonel in the armed forces.
Was he the head of the Presidential Military Guards who led the team here?
In the military, I would advise strongly that unless it's absolutely necessary, I'll be very wrong to be here and mentioning names of commanders and their actions and inactions, because I serve directly with them. But I want to say that Colonel Punamani is the current head of the Presidential Protecting Team at the Jubilee House. But if you are talking about leading or not leading, the investigation is ongoing, as the minister stated. So whatever information that will come out will come out.
I want to come to the Ghana-US Defense Cooperation Agreement, which you signed. And I hold in my hands the Hansard of 19 February 2020, where the aviation minister revealed, in response to a question filed by the Honorable Kwame Abuja, that apparently Terminal 1, pursuant to that agreement, Terminal 1 of the airport, has been rented to McDan Shipping Company Limited for 15 years, and he, in pursuant to the agreement, has rented the facility, Terminal 1, which belongs to the people and the government of Ghana, to the United States military. You signed the Defense Cooperation Agreement. Do you have a copy of this agreement? And why did the Ghana government not deal with the Americans directly? Why did you have to rent the facility to a private entity, and he is then dealing with the American government directly, when this was a bilateral state-to-state agreement that came before this House?
Mr. Chairman, in the first place, as he stated, I'm not the one who stated it. It's not under my jurisdiction, so it's difficult for me to answer that portion of the question, because I don't know. I'm not the one who signed it. That's why I didn't state the issues. But Mr. Chairman, the agreement to give facilities out to the Republic of the American people, that is the United States of America, was signed in 2015 by the government of Ghana, by the then foreign minister. In 2015, by the government of Ghana, when Ghana agreed that we shall give some facilities to the Americans. It was signed in 2015 by the then foreign minister to give some facility to the agreement. And I've said it publicly that, look, partners or people who are partners for some goodwill activities do some of these things, and I agree with it. And that's why I continued with what was started. The defense agreement was started in 2015, but I signed it off because I agreed with what the government then did, and I still don't find anything wrong with it. But the nitty-gritties... My
question is...
The nitty-gritties of what we are talking about...
Why are we not dealing with the Americans directly?
No,
This has security and economic implications.
I'm saying the nitty-gritties of what you are saying is difficult for me to say, but what I know...
So where can we get that agreement?
Mr. Chairman, what I know is that the Americans did not... They use their taxpayers' money, and they are the people who chose their vendors. It's not the government of Ghana that chose their vendors. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
It doesn't appear you understood my question, Mr. Chairman. The question is,
Honorable,
our airport terminal 1.
Can I ask a question? First, he says he's not a signatory. Second, that the Americans chose their agent. I think that should be sufficient.
No, but this is our airport. The Americans can't choose to just come and take over our airport. That belongs to the government of Ghana.
Honorable Member, I think the Honorable Minister has explained that Ghana government had reached an agreement earlier, and it is in the implementation of the agreement earlier that we are at now. But they have not taken our facility, as you suggest. They have signed an agreement. They choose an agent to represent them. You're asking him why the American people chose that agent. And his answer is that he can't explain that.
No, Mr. Chairman, with all due respect, that's not my question. Probably I should read the Hansard, column 024. This is what the minister told Parliament. GACL has rented out the ground floor of Terminal 1 to McDan Aviation for use as a logistics operations center for a period of 15 years, from January 2019, pursuant to the Ghana government agreement with the United States of America. McDan has also signed a management agreement with the United States military and provides logistics and handling services to the U.S. military through Terminal 1. So, pursuant to the Ghana-U.S. Defense Cooperation Agreement, we decided that we would lease the Terminal 1 to McDan so that they would then go and deal with the Americans, when we could have dealt with them directly. That's my question.
I think his answer is sufficient. Can you move on?
Okay, Mr. Chairman. The nominee. Yeah.
Chairman, with your indulgence, let me just get clarity to the question of Honorable Ablakwa. His reference minister's own words to Parliament. There is a two-party agreement between two states, the Republic of Ghana and the United States. Now, he wants to know why the subsequent agreement is not between Ghana Airport Company, for which we can demand accountability as a state-owned entity, entering into the relationship with the American government, but a private entity.
Mr. Chairman, like I said before, the Americans chose their vendors. They chose 3 vendors. They chose 3 vendors. And the company...
the minister wants to name the vendors.
The company he mentioned is one of them. Aviance, Cargo, McDan, and there's a company that has this big warehouse just by the presidential, that one. I think it's a Lebanese or something. I've forgotten the name of that company. They are the 3 vendors they chose. It is not the Republic of Ghana. That's why I said that the Americans chose their vendors, and their vendors provided what they were looking for them. It's not me. Neither is the Ministry of Aviation. And as for the issue of signing, I didn't sign anything, so I don't know. I cannot answer that one. I can't, because I didn't sign that one. So it's difficult for me to answer that question.
Well, Mr. Chairman, the nominee addressed the press on the 7th of December 2017 at a Meet the Press. 7th of December 2017 at a Meet the Press series. And at that press engagement, you lashed out at President John Dramani Mahama. You accuse him of having taken over military lands, and you ask him to vacate in his own interest. And if I have the chairman's permission, I quote, "I want to advise the former president that he should look for a place and leave because it's a dent on him. It's not good for him. He was a president, and he should live there. He should have protected the armed forces." I'm talking about former President Mahama, and I won't say no more. That can't happen any longer, not under my watch, he stated. According to the Bimbila MP, all other past government officials must vacate the disputed lands as a matter of urgency. The way armed forces land were handled, I'm not happy about it. We decided to sell lands, including to some top politicians, and it's a shame. It's not good. Within 2 years, we sold every piece of land, over 300 acres of land, to individuals. The former president's office issued a statement, a rebuttal to this, indicated that they have not purchased any land. He was just a tenant at Chain Homes, as you know. Up to date, you have not retracted and apologized to the former Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces. Do you stand by these statements?
Mr. Chairman, I want to state emphatically that I said, and let me repeat again, if I were the former president, because of the situation there, I would not stay there because he was former commander-in-chief. I gave some other things that he mentioned. The answer I want to give, I will believe you should hear me off camera first, because of the respect, not just the respect for the former president.
You said the answer you wish to give to this question?
Yes. I want you to hear me off camera first, because of the security implications and what I want to say. I'm coming. So if after that you still want me to say it publicly, I can say, but I would advise that you hear me off camera first.
Honorable Minister, if you consider it not worth public, I'll ask you to leave it there.
I would think that I will leave it there.
Very well.
Mr. Chairman,
Honorable,
my question has not been answered.
Sorry?
It's a simple question. Does it stand by it? We will not We will not be bamboozled by this claim of national security interest.
Honorable,
Do you stand by this? You publicly attacked the former president. You accused him of being on land that belongs to the military, which is not true. Do you stand by it or not? It's a simple question. We shouldn't hide under national security pretensions. It's not fair. What he has even done is even more dangerous than what he said about the former president, and we will not accept it. It's not dangerous.
Mr. Chairman,
it gives a certain connotation as if the former president has done something wrong.
Mr. Chairman,
I mean, please.
If you cannot abide by the pending, go out. When you come down, you come back.
Mr. Chairman, I have never.
Mr. Chairman, that's not fair. People's reputations are being impugned.
It is fair. We wait. You rag on. I ask you to hold on. You rag on. It's not fair. If your tempers are high, I ask that you stay out. When you cool down, you come back.
Chairman, I don't think tempers are that high.
If
Minister,
high,
Chairman will rule on your question, but you can do the first part of his answer. Do you stand by your words or not?
I answered that already.
Mr. Chairman, from what he read, it is very clear that I did not say the former president purchased land, military land.
Okay.
You read your own thing. I never said that anywhere, and I won't say it because it's not a true thing. That former President John Mahama, went and purchased military land. You read your own statement. So when he's trying to say that was wrong, but I just said beyond that, I don't want to say anything. We can talk after this.
So beyond that, we'll hear you. You've given him an answer, Sammy. So let's, Eric, if Chairman will accommodate you, take you.
No, I'll go to.
Or he'll go to the other side and come to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's a follow-up question and then one question. Well, I will try and put it. But the problem is that the other side keeps asking plenty questions. Yes. Okay. My major question. I want to ask the Honorable Nominee, you have spoken very well about your achievements at the Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Defense, and obviously you have contributed greatly to infrastructure, upgrade and rehabilitation of accommodation, provision of logistics. Can you please tell us what new package that you have for our men and women in uniform in the next 4 years of your administration if you are to be approved by Parliament?
Mr. Chairman, I believe, first of all, that the three arms of the armed forces three services need a lot of re-equipping. Air Force, Army, and Navy. We need to give them the equipment, more equipment for them to do what they need to do. We need to give the Navy the ships. We need to give the armed force, the Army, the vehicles and the armored vehicles they need. And the Air Force, we need to give them the air asset to be able to defend us. So that's one of the first things that I will say. And I've already stated about the accommodation, the plans to continue to give them more accommodation. And of course, moral issues, places of recreation. We are building a state-of-the-art stadium and multi-purpose facility in Tamale, and I think the minority leader will bear witness to me. We intend to continue with it in other areas like in Accra, in Takoradi, and other areas if we have the resources. And I think that these are some of the things that I'll continue to do to ensure that it's done. We have promised to protect military lands. It's one of the reasons why this matter happened. But like I said, we've decided as a policy to find out exactly what is called the military lands. And then from there, we can take a decision going forward. There are a lot of things that we'll have to do together to ensure that our armed forces are strong. But ultimately, we need to modernize our armed forces so that they can be useful going forward in contemporary times, to be able to defend us when we need them to be able to do that, and ensure that Ghana continues to be a peaceful nation for years to come. I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Now, Mr. Chairman, one last question. Globally, nations are becoming very conscious about extremism in the rank and file of military, especially in the US. I mean, in the last time, there's a media report that about 20% of those who are arrested for the Capitol Hill insurrection during the transition period, about 20% of them were either currently in the military or former service personnel who have served in the military. Are we also faced with such situation in our country where we are having extremists in our military?
Mr. Chairman, there's none that have come across for now. And you said extremists. No, there's none that we have come across. And of course, there are people who have very strong views, some even strong political views, but we don't have, we haven't come across what we call real extremists that can pose a danger to our nation, not as I'm aware.
I'll give the last one to Honorable before I come to leadership.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Honorable nominee, Parliament of the Republic of Ghana approved a $100 million loan facility for your ministry for the provision of housing facilities for the military, including the reconstruction of the Military Academy at Citi. My checks indicate that of Kumasi has not taken off, even though the facility was assessed almost a year ago. I would like to find out from you what has accounted for this and what component of that facility is to go into the development of the housing facility for the Kumasi garrison.
Mr. Chairman, it's true that Sunyani and Kumasi hasn't taken off because the contractor is moving in phases. I'm aware, or I'm being told that before March, the contractor will move to the two sites, Kumasi and Sunyani.
Remember, this is February, before March. This is February.
Yes, I know.
Before March.
Yes, I know, Mr. Chairman. That's what I was briefed. He's winding up in Tamale, and then they will move to the Kumasi site. But for Accra, for the others, they have actually virtually moved to the site. There are allocations that the armed forces did. I don't have the actual figures in terms of the number of buildings for each particular, but there are allocations that the armed forces themselves did. And they've gone around to assess, and then they will start. But I can assure you that each garrison is being given a fair share. Remember that there are 3 services. We don't have the Navy apart from Accra and Secondary Accra, we don't have the Navy in any place. We have them only the 2 places. The Air Force is in 3 places. And so the rest is Army. So when you are giving, you will also balance the services as well. So sometimes you may see Accra having more because they have all the 3 services. You may see Secondary Accra, they may be having more because they have the 3 services. So sometimes it's like that. But Kumasi is being given its due. The 4th garrison will give its due as we go on. I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So, Honorable, I ask of the cost of the delay and the money for that project. How much is going into that project?
I think I've already mentioned that the contractor is moving in phases. So it's not a delay, it's moving in phases. And the next phase is Kumasi and Sunyani. That's what I thought I said before to you.
The question has to do with the Afari Military Hospital, the 500-bed military hospital in Afari near Kumasi. This is a project that you inherited from the erstwhile Mahama administration. And in fact, under the contract, construction was to be completed in 2017. In fact, when you look at the 2017 budget that your government presented to this House, in paragraph 726, there was an emphatic statement that the project was going to be completed in 2017 and even start operations. Then in 2018, you reported under paragraph 731 in the 2018 budget that you were going to commission that project in 2018. But surprisingly, In 2019, when you go to paragraph 944, you indicated that work done on the project is 40%. The project that you had wanted to commission in 2018, in 2019, you reported to this House that work done on that project was just 40%. And in 2020, you have reported under paragraph 1078, that work done is 80%, 81%, and that you commissioned the project in 2020. We are in 2021. What is the status of that project? And considering the delay, is that not going to occasion additional cost? And when are you going to complete that project and commission?
How many questions have you roped into this one? Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I think for this particular project and the other district hospitals, as a country, it brings to fore some of the problems that this is a 2008 project. It was approved in Parliament 20th of November 2008, this project. Mr. Chairman, what actually caused the big problem is that 6 years down the line, May 2014 is when actual construction started. May 2014 is when the actual construction started. When the project had moved to about 4 different locations. It went to, it was supposed to be a Sofo line, then it was shifted to Tamale. From Tamale, it was shifted to 37. In fact, a sort was cut in 37. Then, no, it was then shifted to Afari again. So all these delays by the contractor caused some bit of delay. But Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to report that this project is, apart from the electrical, because they need to do serious light. They have light now, but the normal light cannot. They have their own standby generator. Apart from that, I think by March it will be March or April it will be complete there. Otherwise, this project and then what we call the auxiliary works. Apart from that, the project is essentially complete. But we have the auxiliary works, the outlining works, the other works that's supposed to be done, the housing project for the nurses that's supposed to be done. But if it's the main hospital and the equipment, a lot of it has been installed. I was speaking to the contractor the other day because we want to use that facility to serve as an emergency that we need now. So I've been talking to the contractor over the last 1 week, so I know the stage of the work that is there. But this year, it will essentially be done. One of the delays was also not to immediately commission it because you need to make sure that you get all the staff to the place. And I think that if you have time and you approve of me, we'll go there and you yourself will see what is really happening. And I'm happy you're asking the question. We'll go there together and you can ascertain for yourself the state of the hospital.
Honorable nominee, I hope you know about Global Fire Power. Global Fire Power, which is a grant-based company. It's a grant-based company that provides unique analytical display of data concerning today's world military powers. They gather data on military powers of states and then rank them. You recall that in 2016, when they did the ranking, the Ghana military placed 19th. I think this was published by Citi everywhere. When they did it in 2020, Ghana placed 22nd. Mali, Cote d'Ivoire, and Cameroon overtaking Ghana. What do you think has accounted for this?
Mr. Chairman, I think that you should just go to the details of the global firepower, the gunfire, firepower, and find out exactly. A lot of the information they put there are not correct. They put there are essentially not too correct. So I don't put a lot of premium on some of the things that you find on the internet. Mr. Chairman, many nations, you will not know the extent of their firepower. And I'm very, very surprised for anybody to think that he knows what we have in Ghana or what Africa has. You may have skeletal information and you will rank it, but the actual true power of the nation you will never know. And it's not something that even people should know. So be rest assured that Ghana Armed Forces will defend you when they say.
No, I think the research was based on some criteria. One has to do with the number of serving military members. They have to look at the naval force. They have to look at fuel availability for military operations. And then they look at the number of jet fighters. They also consider defense budget and logistic feasibility. This is the criteria
Mr. Chairman,
upon which we are assessed.
Mr. Chairman, like I said, they gave us the number of jet fighters we have. They gave us a population. And I'm saying to you that ignore that information. It's not correct. Yes, even the information they gave Ghana is not correct. So let us just move on. It is not in our interest to give out what we have. But what they gave about Ghana is not correct. Even though it serves as a guide for us to do more, which I accept, but it's not correct information.
Yeah, no, I have Honorable Minister, we have also had reports of encroachments on military lands. I recall there was a video that went viral on social media when the people had almost crashed with the military on a piece of land. And they had mounted the billboard of the president, and there were a whole lot of issues around it. How do you intend dealing with this issue that confronts us as a nation?
That's the difficulty, Mr. Chairman, when the military is in the center of very prime lands. It becomes something, especially if those lands are not developed. Everybody will want to have a piece of the cherry, a piece of a bite of the cherry. So these things are things that will manage. But you are dealing with human beings. And so you have to manage the human beings to be able to do your work and do it properly. That's one of the reasons I said that I didn't want to be speaking about it publicly. But I just want to assure you that we'll do everything and anything to ensure that we engage all the stakeholders so that the military is for everybody. In fact, you don't have only one tribe in the military, and they don't do work for just one tribe or one individual. I remember I jokingly told the chief of Tamale once that, remember, if you give land to if you give something to somebody, do you collect it back? Or do you ask for compensation? He said no. In the north, when you dash somebody something, you don't ask later for compensation. Then we started laughing. But it had to do with some of the lands that they were looking for compensation, and we all started laughing. But I just want to say that we're engaging all the stakeholders to ensure that some of the things you saw that day, they don't happen again. And I can assure you that those things behind the scenes are ongoing. And not just me, with the lands minister and all others, we are trying to make sure that those things happen. It's across board. It's not just only Accra, it's across board. Because the military are beginning to have some of the prime lands. And you know that land in some places is real income. And you can understand people when it comes to some of these things. And some of the people, like I've always said, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate their difficulties. I am from a village. I can just walk to the bush and farm. But if you are having somebody who's in Labadi or Teshi, who, if he has to go and farm at Dodowa, will have to take a car and he doesn't have that money, it becomes a problem. And maybe, so we need to look at all the situations from all angles. But we together will engage it and make sure that we do the right thing.
Honorable Minister, wherever you locate the armed forces, it's a matter of time. That place will become prime. It's a matter of time. So, do you consider that consideration? Time you keep moving, is that a consideration?
No, Mr. Chairman. First of all, in the UK, there are places, in the US, there are places where the armed forces find themselves, and the towns have grown to catch them, but they are able to find a way of fencing off armed forces places and lands so that the public don't have access to it. But these are all part of the plans that we are laying in place. That's why we are making a full inventory of whatever we have, including even those that we intend to have and those that have been given us. And I'll take the opportunity to thank the people of Asante Akim North, where Agogo is. They gave the armed forces huge tracts of land. to be able to train there in the future. And I will really want to thank them and thank other people who are also doing same. People of Tamale, Accra, and Takosangadi, Takrade, Ho, and other places. The armed forces have a huge parcel of land as a gift from the people of Volta region. And I'm very excited about some of the things that our people are doing. That respect for the military is there. But I still think that we need to together protect the armed forces and the properties that they have by cordoning off that particular area. Even if it happens to fall in town, but we need to cordon off and know that this is for people who will defend us. We should not try to take it away from them. But we need to engage everybody to ensure that we all come to an understanding. But you cannot keep moving because, especially within Accra, if you move, the town will catch you up and you cannot keep moving. You have to take a decision one day to make sure that things are done and done properly. I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Very well. Leadership. Okay, this is a sixth one. Yeah, I'll give you another opportunity elsewhere. Yes, leader. We agreed that we'll do 5. We've extended to 6. Now, I think that's sufficient. So, leader, please.
Honorable Daka, Chairman, maybe be a little flexible. You can just give him one question. Then leadership will manage how much time we spend. I give you an assurance that we can do 3 hours. If you don't want us to undertake the exercise, there's no problem. That is why we are here. Please. I just say you should give him one question. I'm not even saying 3. He raised his hand. You can see I'm not. Me, myself, I assured you 6 plus 2 is here. I took my word. But I'm saying if the honorable member feels strongly, you can manage it by giving him one opportunity. Yeah, just one, and then. But I assure you that I'll manage my.
Kindly permit him to ask a question.
Sorry.
If you could kindly permit him to ask a question.
Yes, honorable member.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Honorable nominee, I am aware you know that as the administrative head of the armed forces, you bear some obligations, particularly when it comes to the activity of members of the armed forces. Are you willing to take responsibility for the excesses of military officers during the 2020 elections?
Mr. Chairman, I thought that question has been answered.
No, it hasn't, Mr. Chairman.
Hold on.
Very well.
Honorable Minister, he says, are you willing to take responsibility? That question has not been answered. Can they answer?
Mr. Chairman, I don't know what every individual has gone to do. So, for some reason, if somebody has gone to commit a crime that is supposed to be punished, and I say by law I'll take responsibility, it's been unfair to me for that type of question. So, I would say that we don't, legally, it will be very unfair to me to say that, do I take responsibility? It's too wide, so I will just say no.
Honorable nominee, there is a video circulating that shows military officers in Techima South. Have you been interested in investigations in this matter? Apart from what I consider...
He has answered that question, so ask another question, please.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, I would move to what happened in the chamber. I want to do a follow-up question on what happened in the chamber. Honorable nominee, it's been 1 month after what happened in this chamber. I am sure that even as a caretaker minister, he would have been briefed on what happened. What specific steps have you taken in respect of investigation into what happened in this chamber? Because not until we are willing to take responsibility for our inactions, we would not be able to correct them in order to move forward. Honorable Minister, I'm thinking that we should be able to take some responsibility of what happened. And that is the only way we'll be able to correct moving forward.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, I said that matter is being investigated. Until the results come out, it's difficult for me to take further steps because it will not help and to prejudice the investigation. But if you were to compare what happened in Ghana to even world powers, some of the world powers, you will say that anything happens. It's not impossible for things like that to have happened. It's just that, like I said, let us investigate and find what is the best way forward. What has happened? Do we hold somebody responsible? How do we reform ourselves? Even Parliament itself, is there a way of reforming issues so that those things don't happen again? Because you and me don't want these things to happen.
Yes, and to what extent?
You know that you and me don't want it to happen.
And to what extent are you willing to investigate?
Honorable Sosu, I was supposed to give you one. You've taken two. Now you're moving on to three.
Mr. Chairman, it's because it's a follow-up.
I'm sure you've had enough. We agreed we'll do 6 each. Now we've extended to 7. So now leadership, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, in the minister's answer earlier, he said 2 things, and I just want to show him a video. No civilian has the capacity to move the army. And he also said the armed forces are very professional. These are your words. Look at this video. The Chairman, with your permission, is being shown on the screen. Then if you can put the mic at your end so that the sound can come.
Ida, what is the length of the video? I think you can start asking questions while going on.
Mr. Speaker, I'm worried we are not getting the voice. But, Honorable Osula, you are not the chair, please.
Saw scenes of destruction.
I'm playing the voice from my phone here.
Abandoned pits and mining settlements dot the road leading into the remaining part of the forest. After dodging water-filled dangerous open pits, we arrived at this mining settlement deep within the forest enclave. 7 Chinese nationals were quickly located and arrested.
That is a commentary. What?
Leader of the team conducted a search.
Yeah, so ask your question based on the picture, not the comment.
There were indications of military presence.
From what we are seeing here, it looks like there are some military men involved in this whole activity in this forest. Because you are looking at their uniforms, even some have names on them. But we did not meet any of them. But looking at it, I think the military were the people protecting them here to do this illegal job.
Okay, so what are we doing with the uniforms? First of all, we need to retrieve them and then ascertain as to who sanctioned their duties here. So these are military accoutrements. You can find names on them. This one is Camel. This one is Camel. We have the other one, Amwani, on this one. And these are, as security men have been able to authenticate, these are quality Ghana Army uniforms.
Yeah, I think your point is made. Let's proceed with it.
We may have some military
the part I want you to
see,
we'll show
in the midst of our search, a young military officer drove into the compound in a tundra vehicle.
Yes, sir. We see a lot of people.
He started making some calls to his superiors.
I will do the staff sergeant, sir. We are here at this thing, Tontokro. The hot duties, and there are some policemen and media be here.
Within the next 30 minutes, the whole place was crawling with over 30 angry, armed military men. Anger turned into heated verbal exchanges and near fisticuffs. A group of physically built men with known faces from the Delta Force group also joined them. The Chinese were released. Our news team was prevented from filming anything from this time onwards as they overpowered the task force and took over. Things got physical as the macho men assaulted my driver, forcibly took the keys to our vehicle and struggled with a camera technician for the camera. Under the watch of the military men, they broke our windscreen and side mirrors. Owner of the site, Donald Nitiwul, ordered the military to delete all footages from our camera and our personal phones. But we managed to retrieve items from our formatted card. It took the intervention of the Ministry of Environment and the Military High Command to get us released. The Minister for Environment told our news team, quote, Heritage Imperial only has a prospecting license, as though it is mining illegally in the forest. He is supposed to be drilling, testing samples to be presented in the process of getting a mining permit. But Donald told our news team he has all the documents giving him full access to mine in the forest. But in all this, the best judge is the environment, which lies unclaimed with huge gullies and pits. Reporting for Joy News, Erastus Asaredonko, Kumasi.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. I'm grateful you allowed this to be played. Honourable Minister, these are the men that you call are professional and do not take instructions from people, who confront legitimate task force set up by government, surrounded them, humiliated them, and it has to take course for them to be released to go on doing their legitimate duty. As Defense Minister, I want to believe that this has come to your notice. What have you done since this video was shown to you?
Mr. Chairman, I still want to repeat that members of the armed forces are professionals. Members of the armed forces don't take instructions from civilians. And that is how it is. Mr. Chairman, even the video that is being shown, nowhere in the video has it been proven that the armed forces took instruction from a civilian or the armed forces are not professionals. There is a big difference between individual action and the total direction of the armed forces. I have caused investigation into this immediately because, like I said, on 31st January 2020, I issued a cabinet directive to the armed forces that no member of the armed forces is expected to be seen in any forest area except for 2 areas. And if anybody is doing that, it's doing in contravention of the government directive. And so I've asked that they should investigate this and bring me the report. The Chief of Army Staff has given his response. The GOC, General Commanding Officer, has given his response. And the investigation is ongoing. We'll put all the pieces together. And I can assure you, I've said it before, if anybody is found guilty, that person will be punished. And it doesn't matter who is minister. That's how it's supposed to be. But, like I said, the initial feedback from the Chief of Army Staff and the investigation is that the members of the armed forces that were found, they were stationed as part of Camp Life in 2019 to track and chase away illegal miners. So all this, as part of it, we are investigating all that, all those kind of things that are there. But the armed forces of the Republic of Ghana has not sanctioned anybody to be in the mining concession since 31st January 2020. 31st January 2020. And I can assure you on that particular one. What you are seeing is a narrative by a journalist who accompanied the team that went around to do that. A week earlier, which you don't know, is that the armed forces plus the police were tasked by the same government to go and arrest. That's why you saw the Chinese sitting down on the floor. And we have done that in several other areas. And we've been going around looking for illegal people who are still mining illegally. We did that in Western Region a week earlier. And this was in Kumasi area. That one, because it was positive news, it was not shown. But I still want to tell you that this particular incident is being investigated. And the report will come out soon.
Honorable nominee, how long should we wait to expect the report on this? Because we've had so many incidents involving military officers. It's being investigated, and never do you get a report or the public told the outcome of those investigations. How long should we wait for a report on this?
Mr. Chairman, I did say here that some members of the armed forces were even dismissed from their job. Some members had their ranks reduced as a result of some acts that they committed, whether in Galamsey or other areas that are where I know that for a fact. And I'm saying to you that it's difficult to rush investigations because you may rush and do a shabby job. So if I give a deadline now, then the armed forces are bound by that deadline. And so I'll plead with you that if you can find out from the armed forces, you can find out from the CDS, you can find out from anybody that the GI has gone to do investigation on it, the CDS set up a team to do investigation on it, and they're putting all the pieces of information. Of course, they gave me preliminary report. That's why I stated what I stated, that the preliminary report shows that there were members of Operation Calm Life, and that maybe some of the journalists may have misunderstood their role in that area. But let the full report come out. And I can tell you that if somebody is found to have gone in contravention with the laws of the Republic of Ghana as well as the orders given them, that person will be punished. I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, he said that
in answering a question related to the election violence, he said the military were there to assist the police, and therefore those investigations were being conducted by the police. Is that right? So where you have footage like that of the Techiman South, where you saw military officers in that video firing, you think that it's not necessary for the military itself to also investigate their officers or to investigate their involvement in that exercise, but they should just leave it to the police to invite them before they may act?
Mr. Chairman, like I said, a month ago, I issued a statement saying that if you have evidence of some of these things, give it to the appropriate authorities, particularly the police. They will share with the military, and the investigation will start. Like I said, if you are not being accused of something, it's difficult to start an investigation immediately. But the person who had jurisdiction over the security operation were the police, and that's why they are doing the investigation. We don't also want a situation where somebody will say that, oh, it is the military. Sometimes when the military do something, they do their own investigation immediately because they are the people who carry the operation. But when there's a joint operation, like in this particular case, most joint operations, the military are the head. But in election-related cases, the police are head because the military are not the front-line people. They are not the people in charge. They just come to assist and go back. So the police are actually there. I will plead with you for that you allow the investigation to finish. Like I said, like yesterday it was stated. And then if somebody is found guilty, that person will face the rigors of the law. So if there is evidence, as yesterday that was presented, let us add it to a body of evidence that the police are doing, and then we invite the people concerned, and we'll take it from there.
Honorable nominee, I want to just ask you this, that since the election, are you saying, as the then Defense Minister and the government representative at the Ministry of Defense up to today, you have not seen those videos where the military officers were involved in this scuffle with civilians that led to death and injuries, that may warrant you to ask the military command to investigate their part of those actions, whilst the police is investigating the whole?
Mr. Chairman,
because you are asking that if we have evidence, we should provide it. And I want to believe that you've seen a number of such videos.
Mr. Chairman, you used the word scuffle. First, you said they were shooting and then later scuffle. I have not seen a video of the military people shooting into the crowd and killing somebody. If there is that, let me have it. And I will give it to the CDS and we will start investigation immediately.
Noted.
But I have not seen that one.
I just want to find out from you that even though you are not a military officer, but you head the the defense ministry, is it professional for military officers to use live ammunition in dispersing crowds?
Mr. Chairman, it's very, very difficult to answer that question because circumstances differ. So if I were to sit there and say, oh, it is not professional or it is professional, I'll be misleading you. When there are insurgents, you will use live bullets. When the life of the military officer, you have very rare military officers like Major Mahama who, at the point of death, will not use his gun, but some may use. So it's very difficult for me to answer that question because I'll totally be wrong to say that it is unethical. It's not. But generally, like I told you, crowd control is the work of the police. But when it gets out of control, it becomes violent, it leads to death, it leads to armed conflict, then they call in the military. That's all that it goes. And sometimes the military may use minimal force to be able to calm the situation down and hand it over back to the police. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, earlier in an answer to a question, the nominee said that the increase in the number of years by 5 years before officers are decommissioned had helped a number of persons to the extent that one person came to his office. Is that right? Is that right? The mic is off. I said, is that right? Did I hear you say that?
I said that.
When did this policy kick in?
We started the implementation of that policy in 2017, but as we went through the parliamentary process, that policy actually kicked in completely in 2020. Completely. But then we allowed them to stay because we had started the promulgation. You remember the LI was passed in 2017 or 2018. I'll check the date. I think 2018. The LI was passed by Parliament. So it has kicked in. So all along, they have been there since.
So roughly, we say even 2017, you had given this instruction whilst we are going through the formalities of regularizing it, right?
Yes, Honorable.
And you said the officer came to your office to thank you that he's now going home, but he's thanking you that he would have gone earlier had it not been this policy intervention. You said that.
Yes, when I use the officer, I'm actually talking of other ranks.
I'm talking about other ranks.
You say WO, yes. But sometimes maybe people misunderstand and think this policy only affects the other ranks. It does not affect the officers.
Yes, I mean, you know, I'm not a military officer, so maybe, forgive me if I use them interchangeably. That gentleman or other ranks came to thank you that had it not been that intervention, you have left much earlier. Is that right? You said that?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, he did. And he wasn't just thanking me, he was thanking those who brought that policy. I was just the face of that policy.
Mr. Chairman, you agree with me, from 2017 to now, it's not 5 years. So if you had 5 more years to say, you couldn't have come to be bidding you farewell if you had gotten 5 years. That sounds inconsistent with when you took the action and when he was leaving and coming to thank you, when you had gotten 5 years more to stay in the army.
Mr. Chairman, when we came to, when we took over the reins of government, the 91 group was supposed to go. Military, it is the year that you come in that you said. If you calculate 91 till now, it's 30 years, 2021. So it is that group I'm talking about, that they were supposed to have been released. So we stopped the release of that person. In fact, if this government hadn't come to power, they would have been gone immediately in 2017, but we stopped them. That particular.
You agree
so
with
you
me,
check,
so
91 till now, then 92 will be next year.
If you are talking about the 91, then the person should have left in 2016. The 25 will have been 2016.
That's what I'm saying. It tells you that they were not released in 2016. They were not.
So are you saying that in the military, when they are supposed to be released in, say, 2017, you have cases where it extended beyond the 2016 into the following year?
I took the decision, Mr. Chairman, I took the decision that those we came to meet, they should enjoy it, because some were like, oh, those who were qualified to be released in 2016 should have gone. I took the decision that they should all stay. Because there was, I don't want to say there was no money. It takes a lot of money to release soldiers. And if the government did not give them the money and they don't release them, they will stay. And so I took the decision that the 91 group was the next to go, and they hadn't gone. So I took the decision that, look, let them stay and enjoy the 5 years. And that's why they are now 30 years and they will go this year.
Earlier in an answer to a question about a Ghanaian citizen that was arrested around Bole and being incarcerated in the Ivorian prison, as my colleague Honorable Gaga mentioned, you said you were aware of this case, is that right?
Yes.
What have you done since? You said you were exploring diplomatic means to get this our compatriot released from either the Ivorian prison or transferred into a Ghanaian prison.
I said that the Minister of Foreign Affairs is engaging her counterpart to ensure that we do not resort to the military so that my ministry doesn't come in. In fact, it is advisable not to let my ministry come in at this stage. So we have decided, for the sake of bloodedness, to not allow the Minister of Defense to actually even get close to the action for now, and allow the Minister of Foreign Affairs, which is the diplomatic arm of government, to do the work for now for us.
But have we been following up with your colleague, the Foreign Minister, to get updates as to where this has gotten to?
As the Foreign Minister is a member of the Armed Forces Council, and this matter came, we discussed it at the Armed Forces Council as well. We discussed it at even the National Security Council. And like I said, that we are following up on daily basis. The last Armed Forces Council meeting, for which I went in attendance, was discussed as well, especially how to protect that particular area. And this matter came up again. And even another matter came up where she was assigned to go and continue mediating. And even the country north of us, there's another incident around the Tumu area that she was assigned to do so that we don't get the military to immediately come in. So those little things come and then we assign it to her. So it's gone beyond even what you are talking about. We add others as well.
Mr. Chairman, earlier in an answer to a question, my colleague said, the nominee said, military were signing memorandum of understanding with mine. They are signed before he came. He came to meet a situation where the military has signed a number of memorandum of understanding with mining companies. Is that right? Mr. Chairman, is it possible for him to furnish this committee with a list of this signed memorandum of understanding with those mining companies? They elapsed, I think, some of them 2017, most of them 2017. I don't know whether the military still... Mr. Chairman, it's not whether they are elapsed. Because I don't know. I'm saying of them, when he came, he changed the policy. No, I'm saying that I don't know whether the military still have them, but I believe that the military, they always have them. So I can get the military to give them to you. Yeah, so we will be grateful to get the list. Oh, I can get them to give them companies. Mr. Chairman, when we were talking about the visibility of the military in civilian life, he said, he also agreed, just like yesterday, the National Security Minister, where it becomes very necessary, individuals are provided with military protection. And yesterday I asked this question, but I'm just asking you again, that this includes persons to be following individuals and holding their bags. I think that's how we can really use our military to that extent. Mr. Speaker, we are human beings and people make mistakes. You are assigned to do a particular job, and for some reason, you do something you are not supposed to do. Immediately, I was very concerned. And he was right when he said all of us, everybody involved in this, the CDS, myself, all of us were immediately concerned, and we took action immediately. That's why you didn't see those things repeated. But these things do happen, unfortunately. And even us, as people who even have police, you have some of this happening. You will watch well. Some of these things happen. We have to find a way of ensuring that those things never happen again. But they are temporal people who are assigned. They are not bodyguards. They are temporal people who are assigned to them. And they go when the threat is reviewed. And most times it doesn't even take a month, sometimes 2-3 months. They are reviewed and then they pull out. Mr. Chairman, normally, are you not worried when you hear a lot of complaints that they are becoming too many within the general society, general civilian society, seeing these military officers providing cover for private citizens or even VIPs? Mr. Chairman, I thought I already answered that, yes. I already answered that. So you are concerned? I told you that. And privately, I've expressed that to you before. And in some instances with armored vehicles in those persons' home. Yes. I'm saying that in some instances with armored vehicles in those persons' homes. I am yet to see the military armored vehicle in the home of an individual. If you do, let me know. But no, the military armored vehicle, it's highly, it may not be possible. The military will not do that. Maybe let me ask you. You are in that area. I'm not very versatile with their vehicles. If you have their vehicles that they are able to put guns on, are they not armored vehicles? The armored personal vehicle, yes. The military sometimes, for their own safety, like you go to Jubilee House, for example, you have an armored personal vehicle for a reason. You go to, say, Bimbila, some of the areas that the military go for their own safety, they sit in armored vehicle, but that's different. That's operational decisions that the military make in that point. I thought that you are saying that a bodyguard is
you know, they use armored vehicles to go and guard somebody's house and that kind of stuff. No, but for operational duties, they may decide to position an armored vehicle at a particular spot for operational duties. But I give that to them. I cannot question them why they do that. But it's operational decisions that they make at that particular time after assessing the situation.
Mr. Chairman, in an answer to an earlier question, when he was talking about the recruitment, he said in 2017, when they did advertise, they did a short listing, they have a little over 4,000 that they were taking in phases. Did I hear you right? That's what you said?
That's what I said.
But you know that in the recruitment, whether military, police, and what the security services, age, health are counted, right?
Mr. Chairman, they give a particular age that when you apply, by this month, it should not be more. For the military, they always say that it should not be more than 25 years at this time. The difficulty you have is that you have applied and you have qualified. And because you are going for training next year, they say, oh, you are no more, it will be unfair to the applicants. So because of that, they allow them.
So once somebody was 25, and now by 2020, the person is 28, but his name is still there. They will still go ahead and recruit.
No, I don't think that is there. But I have to check the details. But it's not like that. The armed forces are very particular about age. But I'll check. And that's why some people may lose out. They may not call you, but you may not understand why they may not have called you. It's because of some of these things. But I'll check those things.
And are you by also that statement meaning that since 2017, the open recruitment had happened, or the recruitment happened only once?
No, recruitment, there was an advert and people applied, and there was a pool and they were training them because they picked a group of people and they were training them. Once it's exhausted, and I believe that the next recruitment, you see people apply. The military can decide that, okay, this time we are going to pick only, if we need 2,000, we just pick the 2,000 and we don't have any other person that is on standby. But that's a bit dangerous because we don't have the large space for 2,000. You want to have plus or minus 10% or more so that people, when they fall out or change their mind or do other things, you can easily replace them. But that's the decision for the military to take. It's not my decision.
The question is, you said in 2017 when they advertised for the recruitment exercise, over 20,000 even applicants, they went through the process. And I'm saying that that particular process that generated over 4,000 is the 4,000 that you are saying they've not even exhausted. And yes. I'm saying that you are saying that since that advertisement and process which has gotten the 4,000, no such opening has happened over the 4 years.
Mr. Chairman, for recruitment, yes, but for enlistment, every year they do it and people go to do it. But for recruitment, that one. But for enlistment, every year they keep doing it.
Mr. Chairman, I want to find out from the nominee whether he has seen this publication titled Ghana's Military Risk UN Sanction over Weapons Smuggling by Soldiers. This was referring to a mission in Lebanon, and some investigation was done about 6 officers. Whether this has come to your notice?
The Chairman, there are some things that I normally don't want to discuss, but that story is a very, very, very old story that was recycled. I can give you the details of it, but it's a very old story that was recycled, and the way it was put, it was not correct, but it's an old story that was recycled.
Yeah, I can see when I reading the details of the story, acknowledges that the worry is that it's been some number of years now that no action has been taken on their said officers.
It's not true. It's not true. There was no weapon smuggling as such, but I said that I can give you the details later, but it's an old story that was recycled.
Earlier, you were asked about whether you have visited the victims of the violence during the election, and you said no. And I wanted to find out from you whether, as a member of Parliament representing a constituency, both you and the Interior Minister are members of Parliament, and as heads of this
institutions, both the Ghana police and the military, you didn't think that for care and show concern, maybe you should have visited the families?
I think you're probably right. We should have done that, and it's not late. But I think that you're probably right.
Earlier, you were asked about Colonel Ponaman, and so you knew him.
I do.
Did you see him as part of those who marched into the chamber?
There were about 15, I have to look at the video again, there were about 15, 10 to 15 soldiers plus a number of police who were there, but I'll check up.
Like, but is somebody you know? I don't think...
No, like I said, the investigation is ongoing.
No, I'm not talking about the investigation. I'm saying that, did you see him as part of those who walked into the chamber?
I'm saying to you that I did not really watch. I was more interested in ensuring that nothing happened. So I was more interested in ensuring that nothing untoward happened to anybody. I was more interested. If you watch here, I was sitting there. I came and sat down like this, and I put my hands and I was just sitting down. So I was more interested in ensuring that nobody gets hurt. So I was not really interested in who came, who didn't come. But the investigation will reveal a lot of things.
No, but depends on this is surprising because even I, who didn't know many of them, the police officer like Ogufori, I could say I saw him. And somebody that you knew who is part of the presidential escort that you know very well, you can't say you did.
No, that's why I told you that I did not take particular interest in identifying each and everybody who came. That's all I just told you. I didn't want to take particular interest in identifying everybody who came. All I told you is that somebody took a decision thinking that, oh, I want to save the situation. And so you have police and military there. And judging from what happened outside at the same time, and the result, where later they had to deploy over 5,000 soldiers to make sure the parliament was safe. Somebody took that decision. But let the investigation finish, and then we'll get to some of these answers. If I prejudge, it will not help any of us.
Mr. Chairman, the nominee answered a question earlier about the Ghana airport and the contract with the military, the U.S. Army or U.S. Defense Ministry or Defense Section with a private citizen. He said that it has nothing to do with the Minister of Defense, and therefore he didn't show concern. Is that right?
Never said, Mr. Chairman, I never said I'm not showing concern. I just said that it's difficult for me to answer that question. That's all I said. And I also said that the U.S. chose their own vendors. These are the two things I said. I didn't say beyond that.
Okay, but you didn't have the details of what transpired between
Because I didn't sign it, I don't. I don't have a copy in my ministry as well. There was no point to have a copy in my ministry, so I don't. So I really don't. If otherwise I would have answered, I would give you the answer.
Honorable Nominee, is it not a very dangerous situation? Because supposing Togo, as a republic, decide to come into Ghana and have a private agreement with Gapoha, and our defense minister says, oh, because they are dealing with a private institution, I'm not bothered, or I don't need to see the details of the agreement and know what it entails and see whether it can have repercussions on the security of our country. This is worrying.
It's not like that. Once the government of Ghana has signed an agreement through the Minister of Foreign Affairs in 2015 to exchange facilities, that tomorrow we can also get facilities in that other country, and that agreement was signed by a competent Ghanaian authority. The security implications were done, the assessment was done, and everything was done. So the Minister of Defense is the last place that you want to deposit those things. If it is supposed to be transmitted to the other sector, it's transmitted through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, not the Minister of Defense. That's why I said that the Minister of Defense may be the last resort when we are dealing with some of these things. Because it was a military agreement. That's the reason why the Minister for Defense signed it. But it is not because I need to know the agreements that are done between Ghana and another country. It's the Ministry of Foreign Affairs that all these agreements are rooted to when it is done. But because the Americans chose their own vendors, the agreement is between they and their vendors. And the agreement between Ghana Airport Company and the vendor is between the two. So there is no technical relationship between Ghana Airport Company and the foreigners, so that we will begin to look at security implications. It's between them and the Ghanaian vendors. I don't know whether I'm making sense to you.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, just maybe the last two questions. When he was talking about the lands around the trade fair and many other parts of our country, you notice that one of the major challenges is that, like you just mentioned, that very recently around Asante Atim Northwest, or around Asante Atim, you are given parcels of land. What measures are you going to put in place to ensure that lands that belong to the military are properly documented and properly acquired to minimize these encroachments?
Mr. Chairman, the tradition has always been that the government acquires the land and give it to lands committee who will entrust for the government, then assign agencies to the lands. Those ones were assigned to the military. The military has records of all the lands that were compensated for, and the military has records for all the lands that were noted for acquisition. So they have that, all those kind of things. This is something that they already have, and the records are there with them. We are, like I said, we've put a committee together, and they are putting all this information together so that we will know exactly what has been paid for and compensated, the acreage in each region, and what is noted for proposal. And if those lands noted for proposal are still there anyway, because noted for proposal means you have not paid for it. You told the people, we are acquiring it, you may have put an EI, or what, but you have not paid executive instrument, but you haven't paid for it. So because of that, technically, the people and you can come to an agreement to look at it. If it's still for public good, then you pay for it. So we are putting all this together. When the report is ready, then the Lands Ministry and the Defense Ministry can sit together to know how to go about things. If the government wants the land, then they will pay compensation. If they don't want the land, they return it to the people. Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, my last question has to do with the whole naval, is it base you called it or something? The the Navy base, you call it naval base. The one that you mentioned that you have a very modern, well-equipped. It's naval. Is it? Oh, it's not.
It's around to Sogoko. It's by the waters, the estuary of the waters.
So it's a naval base.
Yes, naval base. Not Okwa.
When was this acquired?
Oh, the process started in the last administration to relocate the naval base to that place, but the actual facilities were put up over the last year. Over the last year. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much.
Yeah, another. Oh, yeah. Chairman, I'm grateful. Congratulations, Honorable Nominee. Let me begin by looking at civilian-military relations. I think my colleague had even shown a footage, and earlier members have also spoken largely to it. I don't intend to belabor the point. I know how passionate you are about this matter. I'm interested in knowing, going into the future, if you are gracious enough and this committee gives you the nod, what will be your plan to improve civilian-military relations, and particularly, what will you do to ensure its sustenance? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I think that one of the areas that we need to improve is the area my good friend has just mentioned, the civilian-military relationship. And we need to improve it to ensure that the military is there to serve the people. But I still think that the military should interact with the civil populace as little as possible. That's why the proposition by my good friend Brian Champon that we should look at how we can still use semi-military people to help the police service, because we need the military anyway to assist the civil police to bring serious law and order in certain portions when people begin to use armed guards and weapons and violence that may be beyond the police. So we need that kind of thing. So we need to look at that dichotomy. But it is important also to ensure that the military and the people understand one another. They are there for one another, and that the military is there to serve them and protect them, so that relationship is existing. There is an open day that the military normally does for the general public to come to Bemakam and come to military facilities to acquaint themselves with the military. I will encourage that as much as possible. I will totally encourage the military to once in a while say one or two things through the media using their DPR, the public Department of Public Relations, to let people understand more what they do, so that people don't have the conceptions that they have. But it's important that we look at that area and strengthen it. It will help us going forward.
Honorable Dominic, the Ghana Air Force has had some problems with their aircraft, especially the CASA aircraft. Do you have any plans of getting over this challenge?
Mr. Chairman, it's true that the Ghana Air Force has 3 CASA aircrafts. In 2017, when we came, all 3 were down. One had a problem in Mali because they were in the peacekeeping and they had that problem. The other 2 were due for servicing and they had not yet been serviced. We managed to put all 3 to be flying. Currently, there are 2 that are working. One had a freak accident last year, and we are taking it to Spain this year to make sure that it is done. The helicopters that we also had, we virtually managed to put all of them back on road, on the air, and they are all working, except 2 that we have sent for overhaul outside the country. And by the close of the year to do the it takes about 8 months for us to do very expensive enterprise, but what can you do? You have to do it. So we've been supporting the Air Force to ensure that all their assets are working. But it is important that the states give the Air Force better equipment than we currently have, so that they can protect us. There are some things I cannot say off air, but I'll meet, if you give me the nod, I'll meet the Committee on Defense and Interior to ensure that together we can get the Air Force working. There are plans that we already have in place, but I need a buy-in of members of Parliament and the public, so that we can capacitate the Air Force to do what they are doing. But the basic things that they need now, the fighter jets that the K-8s that they have, we are working on it, and I think we started last year. It was 1 year. They will all be back in stream. We hope 2021 ending, they should all be back in stream. And so the facilities that we met, we are making sure that they are all working. And it's important, because if you train one pilot at an exorbitant price and that pilot is not flying, it doesn't help us. And so we try to make sure the Air Force has what it takes to be able to do their work. I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Honorable Nominee, you spoke to general efforts, security efforts that you are undertaking to protect the Gulf of Guinea generally, as our contribution. Do you have specific security measures to protect our exclusive economic zone?
As I already mentioned, Mr. Chairman, we are putting a naval base to ensure that we can react faster than we are. It's been accompanied by a lot of equipment, so that our Navy has the equipment to be able to do their work. And even beyond that, we must ensure that the OPVs, which is the offshore patrol vessels that the Navy needs to do, is being done and done properly. But I'm happy to note that some few state organizations are supporting the Navy to ensure that they get fast patrol boats to be able to do their work and do it properly. So the next 1 year will be very exciting for the Navy and the Air Force, especially the Navy. It will be very, very exciting to be able to ensure that they can protect our exclusive economic zone. 70% to 80% of our trade comes from the sea. And so we must ensure that we protect it and protect it well. The Gulf of Guinea is not normally the pride of West Africa, because it's a very troublesome area. So it is important to make sure that the Navy has a capacity to be able to defend us, and we are trying to get what they need to be able to do that and do it properly. Like I said, we need to get a buy-in of Parliament, and Parliament represents the people. Once Parliament and the people agree that, look, we can spend this amount of money to do what is necessary to ensure that the Navy can protect us from the sea, we need to do that. Our exclusive economic zone, unfortunately, is 3/4 of the size of Ghana. That's how big it is. And just the Navy and a few people are doing. So a lot of things happen down there. We must be able to protect it. And it takes a lot of resources to be able to protect that area for us. I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman, I'm grateful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, Honorable Minority Leader.
Chairman, thank you very much. Minister nominee, Honorable Dominic Nitiwul. I wish you well, but to note that one of the questions and the video the Honorable Muntaka referred you to was commending Asare Donko and Joy FM. I think that is a matter that we strongly will recommend to plenary, that the Committee on Defense and Interior does a follow-up and probably do a holistic visit and study to assess the illegal small-scale mining across the country and submit a report. But would be of particular interest to us is because of the men in uniform who are supposed to be enforcing and supporting law enforcement and not to be holding it in breach. So we look forward to that. May I just respectively refer you to your CV, page 2 of your CV. I see that you are careful with your January and your date. But when you come to your leadership positions, you just leave it open, 2013, 2017, 20 Deputy Minority Leader, Deputy Ranking Member, Business Committee, Deputy Ranking Appointments Committee. I hope that we have your permission to improve your CV, or you yourself may want to speak to it. Just page 3 of your CV. And that runs through even your membership of committee so that it will reflect timelessly the chronology of events and your playing those roles accordingly.
Mr. Chairman, I do agree with you that the months as was supposed to have been stated, I left out the months. You know, January 7th to the 2013 to January 6th, 2017 was the period I was the deputy leader. So it runs like that for all of them. So I do concede to what you have said.
Since Chairman is concerned about time, you probably will just have to seek his leave and then do this with the clerks to the committee, because it runs up to page 4. And then when, for instance, in your international conferences, you just say November 2019, Defense and Security 2019, do I take it that you spend the whole of November in that particular exercise? And then January 2018, March 2017, a particular date in March, I believe you want to do. But this you can seek Chairman's indulgence to, just for the record.
Thank you.
And to improve that. And it will even run to PACES. But that brings me to my own matter. Have you abandoned a number of projects at the ministry since you assumed office?
Mr. Chairman, we have uncompleted projects, but to say that we have abandoned projects, no, we haven't.
Are you aware that some contractors have left site on projects initiated by the previous government?
Mr. Chairman, there are 1 or 2 projects that the contractors left side because the amount of money that was allocated for the projects unfortunately had run out. Because if you award a project, for example, at $10 million or 10 million cedis, and the actual results, especially when it is a loan agreement, is about 5 million, it's difficult. So I have 1 or 2 of such problems, and I'm resolving them one by one. And so I can understand.
Chairman, may I refer the nominee to Article 37, in particular 7, of the Constitution. As far as practicable, a government shall continue and execute projects and programs commenced by the previous government. Do we have your assurance that you would identify these projects and complete them for our national good?
Mr. Chairman, the projects are very critical to the armed forces. Most of them are in accommodation, so I do agree perfectly with you that assurance I can give you, that we'll try to ensure that we'll do them and do them well.
I don't have a problem with governments taking credit for what they have done. The Honorable Eric Opoku was referring you to 23rd April 2014 when President Mahama with His Royal Majesty the Otunfuo commissioned 23rd April 2014 commencement of work to improve health self-delivery, the construction of 500-bed military hospital at Afari, Kumasi, Ashanti, captured in your own handing over notes of 2017-2020. When will the project be commissioned?
Mr. Chairman, I stated before that this project was approved in this very House Parliament on the 20th of November 2008. But the actual construction, soft cutting, was done on 23rd April 2014, not 2013. It was around in May in Ashanti region. But like I said that this year, I cannot give the specific, but this year it will be commissioned.
And I'm saying
in fact, the soft commission was supposed to be done last year, but I stopped it. And I said, let's complete the whole project. And we're hoping that by the middle of the year, we'll complete. But I cannot give you a specific date.
We will be interested in seeing it commissioned, because I recall that to the memory of the late President Mills and then Minister for Defense, General Smith, there was good reason why Kumasi was identified for the project. There were those who argued that the project could be added additional to 37 military hospitals, and those who said that it should serve the other half of the country, including the Ashanti garrison. So it will be of interest to complete them. Now, the Honorable Muntaka also referred you to your age thing. 5 years, you are commended. Was it the first time there was adjustment in the retirement age for men in uniform?
No, not at all. I think President Rawlings adjusted the age before. So
yeah,
that's not.
Because I was listening to the Rawlings tribute by the Air Force man.
He did. Rawlings did adjust the age before. I know.
Appreciate that. So continue. Now, you know that I owe the people of Dalong, Afayile, and Kumbongo. They are very unhappy with you over the burning of the tipper trucks and the denial of livelihood to the owners and families of those tipper trucks. Can they be assured of any compensation, particularly so that in other areas you seized? We don't know the whereabouts of some of it. We are hearing reports of it being missing, but in their cases, burnt.
Mr. Chairman, I told you that when the Operation Vanguard process started, a number of, some were tipper trucks, some were excavators, and other things were burned as part of the operation. If I make any commitment here about compensation this time, I'll be jumping the gun. When the total assessment of Operation Vanguard is done, I believe some of these things will be assessed and action taken on them. But it was part of the Operation Vanguard operation. And it was not just only that particular area. I did say that 60 excavators were burned in the eastern region as well, and then other areas in western region and different parts of the country. I think that I want to urge the leader to allow the whole gamut of issues to be put together, and when it is complete, then we can assess it properly and decide which way is to go. But I do take cue from what you have said.
I appreciate that, but those families, the drivers, those who earn from the sun, their livelihood have been hampered. Is it lawful to ban tipper trucks under Ghanaian law, even if it was, is that lawful, or you consider that excessive?
Mr. Chairman, the state agencies have done some things over the years that may not be lawful in the eyes of the Ghanaian public. And it's not just under this administration. And so I want to say that...
You want to say that it's not lawful under Ghanaian law, or else I will be taxing you to provide me justification where any law in Ghana provides that where you are unhappy about an illegal mining activity, ban the particular equipment.
That's why I said that.
You want to support me with that?
They've done a few things that may not be lawful under the Ghanaian law, but we'll have to... As a country, we are growing, and then we'll see where to go. I don't want to commit myself on that one.
All right, the Honorable Okujato Ablakwa was taking you. Ghana has a bilateral relationship with the United States of America. We further signed onto that treaty, which came for parliamentary approval. The understanding of this parliament was a relationship between the government of Ghana, represented by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and probably your ministry, and the United States of America. Do you think that the security interests of this country and value for money could not have been better ensured if the contractual relationship was between Ghana Airports Company, supervised by your ministry, and the U.S. government?
Mr. Chairman, the facilities that were given out and other facilities that have been given out are things that we signed on to in 2015 and agreed, and we're not in the position to say we would, because of this bilateral relationship, to say we will not do it again. The Ghana government resources were not what is being paid to the contractors. It is the United States taxpayers' money that they are using. The difficulty I have is whether we should be the people awarding those contracts, and whether we should be doing the value for money when our resources are not those that are being expended in this particular enterprise. I think that it's difficult to tell the Americans that, look, we want to select the vendor for you. That's why I said that the Americans selected their own vendors for this.
So, Minister, if tomorrow Parliament wants to be briefed on the operations at the airport involving McDan Aviation and the U.S. government, will you take responsibility to brief us on it as Minister for Defense, or you simply say that it's a relationship between McDan Aviation and the U.S. government? Accountability.
I believe that the airport company, through their minister, will be willing to give whatever funds the Parliament demands.
We would want to demand through you an operational report.
The difficulty I have is that because Ghana Airport Company,
I'll give you basis, Chairman. You know, we all use the airport, and it is not every time that the U.S. itself gets it right on its foreign policy pursuit. The way ammunition and arms are moved at the airport can undermine the integrity of and sovereignty of other countries. So this is a matter we must take interest, because if you just say, I know the corner, it used to be the Tamale domestic base, and I hear loss of movement. We are saying that given the sensitivity of it, we don't have a problem letting the American government know. We are of the view that strongly there is state interest, and that state interest is better protected by your ministry or the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, or jointly by the two ministries.
Mr. Chairman, I think
not a private sector
I think that maybe I need to clear something so that the public may not misunderstand. I was talking about the relationship between McDan Company Limited and the Ghana Airport Company. That's what I was talking about. If it's about the relationship between the Americans and Ghana, of course, my ministry is briefed and we know everything. There is nothing that is hidden. At every stage, we have officers that work, because that's part of the agreement. We have officers that work and at every stage to make sure that our interest is covered. So the Ghana Armed Forces at every stage is in full control and know what is going on at every stage. But Chairman, I was just talking about that relationship between McDan and the airport.
I want to take this risk, and probably you have had briefing. I may not call the foreign countries because we are on camera. There was an instance where a foreign neighbor found some ammunition and guns entering that foreign country attributable to Ghana, and therefore our national security system was held responsible for it. Now, if you have this situation of McDan Aviation just with the US system, now another foreign country tomorrow accuses us that those processes or ammunition pass through Ghana. Are you in a position to avail yourself with adequate security information on that matter?
Mr. Chairman, all issues to do with ammunition, guns, or any explosive that is supposed to enter Ghana, we have the records of everything. But human traffic that McDan deals with is what he deals with. But I was actually talking about only the consortium agreement between that company and Ghana Airport Company that my ministry doesn't deal with that. But all other security-related issues, my ministry has information on everything that has to do with it. And I can assure Ghana that we are safe. We have it under control.
We are simply concerned because that is to give too much latitude to a foreign country. If you read anything on national security intelligence, it's recognizable and it's in the preamble of every national security law that the influence of foreign activity of other foreign countries can and is a plausible source of insecurity to another country. You probably can take note of it. Let me now move to the other issue the Honorable Blackwell raised. When you said President Mahama, as he then was, must hand over military land. You have evidence that he has title to any land acquired, 300 acres of land, or as you said, you've corrected yourself. You have evidence that he acquired military lands?
No, I thought I answered that question here, that even in the own words that I stated, I did not say he acquired military lands. I said that as former commander-in-chief, where he is, if I were him, I will not stay there because of the issues surrounding that particular area.
Since you became minister, have you entered into any agreement with any private sector person on military lands?
No, not.
You are sure about that?
Well, that's what I'm saying, that not some that I'm aware of. That military lands, no,
yes.
None that I'm aware of.
That there is no relationship between you and the private sector to provide housing on the basis of sharing of military lands available anywhere in the country?
Housing?
Yes.
Oh, there are some, the defense holding company, DHOC, has been having interactions and agreements with different companies to see how they can build DHOC into a viable company, including housing projects. So if that's what you are talking about, I believe that there are discussions and some agreements based on...
Probably, Minister, just a commentary. The Honorable Mahama Ayaga referred to you to the Saglemi housing project without prejudice to whatever investigation or whatever matter. It should be our recommendation to plenary that that housing infrastructure be dedicated to the Ghana Armed Forces and the Ministry of Defense. It is for you to convince the President with the Minister for Works and Housing that this word pursuing, and maybe I'll improve what the Honorable Ayarga said, instead of just decamping Burma camp completely, if it means additional to ameliorate the housing challenges of men and women in the armed forces, I think that we can build consensus on it, because that waste is provocative. We cannot invest over $200 million US of state resources, complete a project, leave it abandoned, yet we do not have accommodation for armed forces, we do not have accommodation for police when they can use it. They will not forgive us as political elites when we just care about our comfort, and to resolve those matters, we leave it abandoned. I see that Chairman wants us to be moving on to the other matters. So this is just an observation for your purposes. Now, pensions. Where does the Ghana Armed Forces stand today on pensions? Is it Act 766 or Cap 30? How are we reconciling the matters relating to their pension?
Mr. Chairman, the Armed Forces has always remained under Cap 30. When Parliament did the law, armed forces were not part of the new reforms. They've always been part of our captive.
Is that your understanding of the law, or that was the law? Because
that's what happened. So the new policy is now to bring all the other security services, because they said except for the Ghana Armed Forces, all others shall be moved to the new act. So the new direction by Cabinet is to bring the other security services back to captivity like the armed forces.
Is it just done by policy or by legislation? And when are you bringing legislation on it? Because
I think the new minister, of course, once you give the minister the go-ahead and he gets one in, the new minister will do that. The decision was taken rather late, so he couldn't bring it to Parliament. I think it will be brought to Parliament.
Colleagues have dealt with it, but just for the purpose of our record, we had Governors Watch Alliance petition on what happened on the floor of Parliament. And that is what is in respect of you as Minister, a petition made available to our committee through the chairman and Mr. Dominic Nitiwul, Minister of Defense, for the first time in history, chairman read the Fourth Republic. What happened was not just strange, but a sacrilege, and we should as much as possible avoid a repeat of it for the purpose of protecting the integrity of our democracy and sustaining it. Now, I see housing projects. Did you inherit some by the previous government? I've been looking at your handing over notes, in particular from page 4, and then I would be winding up with just a suggestion in mind on recruitment.
Mr. Chairman, I thought I said that I inherited some. I talked about what we call the VTB housing project. That's the one you said part of it was abandoned. Because it was a loan agreement and part of it was used for housing. But because the money ran out, that's why it looked as if it's been abandoned, but it's not. I did inherit some, and most of them have completed them. And I said that from the beginning. And that's why I mentioned the name Dr. Kumbo in my submission, if you remember, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
So in an answer to Honorable Muntaka, when you delayed the retirement for purposes of the that particular year group, additional to the 5 years, were you aware that you were subjecting the state to more costs, even though justified? Were you aware that it would come with some compensation?
Mr. Chairman, once we took the decision to increase the number of years by 5, it was obvious that there were implications to it. We did calculate the implications, and we knew that we were going to have more housing for the security. It was going to bring more costs. It was going to bring more ranks. And so we knew that at all, but we still took the decision and took the policy. And I'm happy that it is paid out well for the members of the armed forces and the general public as well.
There's a particular year where your budget was kind of overrun between 2018 and 19, where you had an additional, just to quote it, your total goods and services allocated in 2018 was 59,174,000, but you had total releases 194 million, with some amount of 135,068,200. What accounted for that?
Mr. Chairman, that's why I said I didn't want to be mentioning the arrears. In fact, all the arrears that were paid in that year vis-a-vis the goods and service, because they pick fuel, food, and other from the goods and service. And so they added it as if it was there. It was payment for arrears.
So the Honorable Osler question you on that. Do you owe fuel and food? Do you owe?
We will always owe fuel because we owe at least 3 months in advance.
It is not just a 2016 phenomenon.
We
do you accept that?
We do, yeah, we do.
And that you owe?
Come on, we do.
You owe contractors supplying fuel and food. What is quite intriguing, and Chairman, I end on it, there was a report you came to Parliament where senior military officers had been promoted and you had difficulty getting money for them to get their proper uniform. Has that been resolved?
Mr. Chairman, I am aware that the government of Ghana awarded a contract to different suppliers to bring in uniform. And I'm yet to check whether those uniforms have been delivered to the contractors. But I do know that that contract was awarded last year. But I'm yet to check whether from the armed forces whether they have gotten it or not. I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Minister, just that our attention has been drawn that the media coalition says they petitioned the committee, the clerk, they petitioned, okay, sorry. So, Chairman, that the military high command have been petitioned by the media coalition on the matter, which was the subject of the video by Honorable Muntaka Mubarak. So beyond this committee hearing,
if the military high command has been petitioned, it will be part of the investigation. And trust me, they will do a thorough job for me. And I'll be very happy to work with them.
So you are not aware of it because
they have not. They don't compare me yet.
They haven't briefed you yet.
They should have petitioned the minister, but they petitioned.
When you leave here, will you go and look for it to work on it?
I think I'll work with them to get it. But like I said, even if they didn't petition the minister, they should have copied me. But it hasn't come to my attention yet. But I'm happy that they did.
Chairman, finally on military lands, and I end with it. The Honorable Muhammad Yarga was referring you to, and I take interest just in Tamale. You know that Norip shares a wall with Kamina Barracks. Those lands have reverted back to the original owners. So the land between Kamina to my uncle's village at Kwane, through Savlugu, through Pulinyong, and you have to manage it well because there are paramounces around that area. There is Savlugu, there is Kumbuna, with some lands around Bana, Yele, Pulinyong, and others. Vast land, you took it from the owners, you are not using it. So as the Honorable Ayarga observed, those to which you don't think that, in any case, they are even of the view that your lease have lapsed, and therefore they necessarily, it has taken the Yana and other chiefs with past regional minister to have averted some of the things associated with it. But I generally, in support of you in improving housing, any of us who on any particular day will spend an afternoon in the cubicle where a soldier sleeps, you would appreciate why we must take particular interest in improving housing for them. So I'm encouraging you to make a strong case, and you are assured that the political opposition today supports it, that the Saglami housing project be dedicated to the Ghana Armed Forces and the Ministry of Defense. Or better still, you share, I think we should just dedicate it to the Ministry of Defense and look for other avenues to compensate the police before they say that. And then, Minister, I end here. We're not too happy with the military presence and guns around. You may justify it, but growing up as a child, I grew up with you in Tamale where you were schooling in St. Charles. It was not a known thing to see soldiers. That what explains in Tamale why we fear soldiers more than police. If you over deploy them as you are doing, they'll be treated like others. So I want to wish you well, and Chairman, I am done with the nominee for defense, and then we'll look at those matters. But for the record, we want to know and probe further into this airport thing with the US and McDan Aviation for purposes of protecting our sovereignty, our integrity, and our relationship with the US government. You must take interest in it. A lot is happening where they do check in. You know, we are all, when you walk to the airport, somebody will come and talk to you that today they pass through this screening. Where are those things going? So you have to tighten security. And I say it without fear of contradiction that it is not every time that the US gets it right on its foreign policy relative to other countries. And therefore, Ghana should not be used as base to undermine any other country for our record. I thank you, Chair.
Mr. Chairman, I take the concern seriously, and I can assure him that, given the note, I will look into these things seriously. And I will get in touch with him and Honorable Blackwan on some of these things to ensure that those things are done and done well. It is just necessary that we do these things and do it very well for the interest of Ghana and for our own sake and for the future of our children. It will be done.
Honorable Minister, I have no question for you. I wish you well.
Chairman, I'm grateful.
We've done some 3 hours. We've done the least so far. But you're discharged. Yes. You can bring in the next one, please.